Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Had a Blood Control Quirk? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. The first time Katsuki Bakugo saw Izuku Midoriya, he didn't understand why the world went quiet. They were barely for a sunny morning at Aldra Daycare, tiny sneakers kicking up dust, the sound of laughter ringing across the playground. Izuku was the quiet new kid with freckles, his curls always falling into his eyes. He sat in the corner with a notebook too big for his lap, doodling the All Might logo with surprising focus. "Hey," Katsuki said, marching up to him with the confident stomp only a 4-year-old could have. "That's All Might, right?" Izuku looked up, startled, green eyes wide like he'd been caught doing something sacred. "Why yeah, he's my favorite. He always saves people with a smile." Katsuki grinned. "Mine too. What's your name?" Izuku smiled shyly. "Izuku." Katsuki sounded it out in his head. "Deku?" He laughed, the pencil in his lap rolling and falling onto the ground. "It's okay, we can have nicknames for each other." Katsuki, a little bit embarrassed, nodded. "My name is Katsuki." Izuku furrowed his brow. "Katsuchi? Kaken?" He stuttered over the letters. Now it was Katsuki's turn to laugh. And just like that, something clicked, a spark neither of them could name yet. When Katsuki brought Izuku over to his house, it seemed like their moms already knew each other. They've known each other since high school and were PRGN&T at the same time. It seemed crazy to him that the old hag didn't introduce Izuku to him sooner. But they made up for it with how much they hung out, and soon both boys found out things about each other that only close friends would know. Izuku noticed that Kaken and his mom looked alike and acted alike, both rough but deeply caring about the people they care about. His father was the complete opposite, a gentle man with kind eyes who kept both his son and wife under control when it counted. Bakugo noticed that Izuku and his mom acted the same, both silent but unbelievably smart. Except Inko had straight, deep green hair with matching eyes, while Izuku had dark, bouncy curls with streaks of green and bright green eyes with freckles. His freckles splattered all over his face and hands. When Izuku wore shorts, they were on his legs too. Izuku's dad died a few months before Izuku was born, but according to the stories Auntie told them, he was brave and kind and adored Izuku so much. Together they grew closer, always together, never apart for longer than a day. Bakugo was loud and bold. Izuku was thoughtful and endlessly curious. When Katsuki rushed forward, Izuku took notes. Together, they were balanced fire and heartbeat. Izuku would watch in awe when Katsuki climbed the jungle gym faster than anyone else. Katsuki would secretly admire how he would break down quirks and easily explain them, and how smart he was in class. Every afternoon, they'd sit under the same tree and talk about heroes. "All Might must be, like, really strong," Katsuki would say, puffing out his chest. "Yeah," Izuku replied softly, smiling. "But he's also kind. That's what really makes him strong." Katsuki didn't say it out loud, but that was the first time he thought maybe he wanted to be kind too. When Bakugo's 5th birthday came, the backyard was full of kids and cheap decorations. Izuku helped Inko bring the cake over, careful, steady, always helping. The next day, when Katsuki's quirk finally appeared, the small crackle of sparks across his palms, everyone cheered. Izuku clapped the loudest. "It's amazing, Kaken," he said, eyes shining. Katsuki smirked, cheeks pink. "Yeah, I guess it is." But what he wanted to say was, "I wish you had one too, so we could be heroes together." Weeks passed. Izuku still hadn't manifested a quirk. The other daycare kids noticed. "Quirkless Deku," one of them sneered. "You'll never be a hero." Katsuki's eyes flared like his palms. He stepped in front of Izuku immediately. "Say that again," he growled, "and I'll show you what my quirk can really do." He scared them off easily, but the whispers stayed. Katsuki didn't care. He just kept walking home with Izuku, pretending not to notice how often the other boy wiped his eyes. "You don't need a quirk to be cool, Deku," he said once, gruffly. Izuku looked up, surprised. "You mean that?" "Yeah," Bakugo huffed. You're my nerd. That's enough. Izuku smiled, and that smile became the heartbeat of Katsuki's world. It happened one afternoon during recess. The teachers were chatting by the benches, distracted. The bullies, 3 of them this time, surrounded Izuku near the slide. "Hey, Deku," one sneered. "Still powerless? Leave him alone." Bakugo barked, climbing up the slide to get to them. But one of the kids shoved him hard. Katsuki fell. The scrape of metal, a sickening thud, and then red blood trickled down his arm where it had hit the gravel. Izuku froze. The sight of blood, his blood cracked something open inside him. The air shimmered. The smell of iron filled the playground. Izuku's eyes glowed red. The blood that spilled from Katsuki's cut stopped midair, suspended in red light, then surged forward, like it was alive. It wrapped around Katsuki's arm, closing the wound in seconds. Then, before anyone could move, it shot forward, slamming the bully back with a crimson wave. Everything went silent. The teachers screamed. The other kids backed away. He used blood. That's gross. That's villain stuff. Izuku looked terrified, tears spilling down his cheeks as he tried to make the blood stop moving. And then Bakugo stood up. He brushed dirt off his knees, glaring at the crowd. "Villain stuff," he shouted, fists clenched. "He saved me. He healed me and beat up the bad guy. That's what heroes do, you idiots." The teachers didn't know what to say. Izuku looked at him like he hung the stars. And maybe, in Izuku's tiny words, he did. And somewhere, deep in his chest, Katsuki Bakugo realized he'd found someone he wanted to protect for the rest of his life. The room smelled like antiseptic and quiet disappointment. Izuku swung his legs off the cold exam table, his fingers twitching nervously in his lap. His mom's hands were clenched around her purse strap, knuckles white. But still she gave him a small smile and told him they could get ice cream after this. A tall man walked in, eyeing both him and his mom with pity. The quirk specialist adjusted his glasses. "Your son's ability is rare," he began, his voice clinical, careful. "May I ask what your quirk is?" She nodded. "I can pull small, lightweight objects toward herself using telekinetic force like keys, notebooks, or cups." She pulled a small stack of cups to her, demonstrating her quirk. The doctor nodded and wrote on his checkboard. "How about the father?" Inko hesitates. "He died a few months before my Izuku was born. He had a fire-breathing quirk though." He nods again, starting to explain Izuku's quirk. "Control over blood at a molecular level. It's powerful but dangerous. If it slips, he could rupture arteries, stop hearts. This isn't something a child should be testing in a classroom." Inko's face went pale. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying it might be best if he were homeschooled," the doctor said softly. "For everyone's safety." Izuku stared at the floor. The faint hum of the fluorescent lights made his ears ring. For the first time, his quirk didn't feel like a dream, it felt like a curse. A week later, boxes of school supplies replaced the laughter of the daycare. Inko tried to stay cheerful, but even her voice trembled when she said, "We'll find a better way, Izuku." Katsuki came by that evening, scowling at the cardboard boxes stacked by the door. "You're really not coming back?" Izuku shook his head. "They said it's safer." Katsuki's hands clenched. "Safer? For who?" He wanted to fight it, to yell at the teachers, the doctor, the system, but one look at Izuku's sad eyes made him swallow the words. Instead, he kicked at the dirt and muttered, "Then I'm coming here after school. Got it?" Izuku smiled weakly. Days blurred together, and soon it was his 10th birthday. He spent it with the Bakugo family. He felt alone, his quirk was so stupid. Izuku hated it. He studied from home, filling notebooks with quirk analysis charts and hero notes he'd probably never use. At night, he'd stare at his hands, the same ones that had healed and hurt, in one breath and whisper, "I didn't mean to scare them." One afternoon, while sitting by the river with Katsuki, it all spilled out. "I hate it, Kaken," he said, voice trembling. "My quirk, it's not like yours. Everyone thinks it's villainous." Bakugo leaned back on his hands, looking at the clouds. "Yeah, well, everyone's an idiot." Izuku blinked at him. "You healed me, remember? You saved me. That's hero stuff, Deku." But nothing. He looked over, eyes fierce but soft. You don't get to hate yourself for being a hero, got it? Something loosened in Izuku's chest that day. Maybe his quirk wasn't hope, but it didn't have to be fear either. Rain taps against the large window, the city beyond glowing in scattered light. Nedzu sits at his desk, tiny paws folded neatly as he stares at a classified folder marked with the government's crimson seal. The header reads, Subject, Midoriya, Izuku. Age, Quirk classification biokinetic hemacontrol, high risk. He pours himself a cup of tea, tail curling as he hums softly. The document's tone is sterile detached. Numbers, danger levels, probability charts. But there's a photo clipped to the corner, a boy with messy green hair, wide eyes, and a shy smile. A child who looked more afraid of himself than anything else. Hemacontrol HM? A rare one, and they already labeled it villain class. How very short-sighted. He flips to the next page. Incident at local park, subject used quirk defensively to protect peer, Bakugu Katsuki. No fatalities. One mild injury to aggressor. Immediate recommendation. Isolation and quirk suppression education. Nedzu's whiskers twitch. Isolation? For saving someone? How human of them. He takes another sip of tea, eyes flicking to the biometric readouts included in the file. The data's remarkable near-perfect emotional control during activation, stable heart rate recovery, even minor signs of regenerative adaptability. It's the kind of control adults struggle to achieve, let alone a 10-year-old. Weeks later, Inko opened the door to a well-dressed man no taller than her knee. A mouse in a tailored suit, carrying a briefcase. Good afternoon, chirped the voice. I'm Nedzu. I work in education and I'm very interested in your son. Izuku blinked. The talking animal. Nedzu smiled. And you're a boy who can move blood. We're both rare. He conducted gentle tests measuring pulse, asking Izuku to move a single droplet, then stopping. Izuku obeyed, careful, controlled. When he was done, Nizu smiled wider. You don't crave power, he said. You crave understanding. That's rarer than your quirk. He turned to Inko. I'll tutor him and help him to become a hero. Nedzu handed Inko a UA card with his personal information and the address. Take him there in the morning. Izuku's jaw dropped as he read, Nedzu, principal of UA High School. Inko cried in joy, and after a while seeing his mom cry, Izuku started crying too. I always knew you could be a hero. After crying, Izuku gasped, I have to tell Kaken. He snatched the card off the table and ran to his house. Luckily they lived right across from each other. Izuku ran to Katsuki's house. Kaken. He knocked on the door hurriedly. The door opened immediately. Nerd. Katsuki asked with confusion and a bit of worry. Katsuki invited Izuku in and he explained everything. Later, he grinned, but he knew he had to train and learn twice as hard as Izuku, so he couldn't slack off. He wanted to stay by his side. What do you know about your quirk so far, Midoriya? Nedzu asked on his first day in the UA. The halls were as pristine as he imagined it. For his little 10-year-old self, he imagined himself grown up one day, becoming heroes with Kaken. I can manipulate the movement, density, and flow of blood both in their own body and in others as long as the blood is within a certain range or visible. This allows me to restrict an opponent's movements, clot wounds instantly, or even weaponize spilled blood by shaping it into solid forms. Izuku rattled off, completely breaking down his ability. Nedzu nodded. Tell me everything you know. From the one time I used it to help Kaken, I can stop bleeding or heal minor wounds by controlling flow. I can also manipulate blood outside the body into a weapon. Izuku hummed. While I was homeschooled, I took it upon myself to study biology, medical science, blood composition, oxygenation, and cell structure. An average human has around 5 liters of blood. Using more than 15 to 20% of it can cause dizziness and weakness. Over 40% can be fatal without medical help. Nedzu smiles. Izuku was smarter than he thought. So that means combat is really hard unless I train. Nedzu nods. You might become anemic the more you use your quirk, so I recommend. Electrolyte drinks and iron supplements when training or resting to regain your energy. Izuku nods excitedly. And later on we can figure out the limits of your quirk, but for now we are just studying your quirk and normal school work. Nezu stands up and quietly motions Izuku to follow him. They go to a small laboratory. Izuku guesses it's his private one. Nezu perches on a tall stool, tail flicking as he gestures for Izuku to sit. A faint classical tune plays in the background. Today, we learn not what your quirk can do, but how it chooses to do it. Izuku sits, hands trembling slightly. He's wearing a clean white coat that's a little too big for him. Do quirks choose though? I thought they were just instincts or mutations. Everything with a will can choose, Midoriya. Even instincts can be trained to listen. Nezu places a small glass slide before him. Now prick your finger, just enough for one drop. Izuku nods, taking a deep breath before carefully pricking his finger with the sterilized pin Nezu provides. A single droplet wells up and falls onto the slide. It glows faintly red, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Good. Now breathe. Don't command it, invite it. Izuku closes his eyes, feeling the warmth of his blood. He imagines it moving the way rivers flow, not forced but guided. Slowly, the droplet stirs, elongating slightly, trembling as if alive. Nezu watches with fascination. Steady, excellent. The trick to mastering power, young Midoriya, is to know when not to use it. The droplet quivers, stretching too far it splatters. Izuku gasps. But I lost focus and that's perfectly fine. He smiles kindly. Every failure tells us how close we are to success. Izuku leans closer to the slide again, whispering like it's alive. Okay, just a little. You can move again. This time, the droplet moves in a perfect, slow circle, tiny, but deliberate. Nezu claps his paws together, delighted. Despite the physical strain, you're learning to speak the language of your own blood. Izuku stares at the slide, wide-eyed, then back at Nezu. I can feel it. It's like listening to my heartbeat from the outside. Nezu's voice softens. That, my dear boy, is a connection. Heroes save lives because they understand life. Yours begins at the smallest level. He scribbles notes, muttering to himself about cellular empathy and psychogenic conductivity, then turns back to Izuku. Next time, we'll work on dividing your control, keeping one droplet still while another moves. But for today, he pats Izuku's shoulder gently. Be proud. You just made the invisible visible. Izuku can't stop smiling. For once, he doesn't feel like his quirk is something to hide, it's something to understand. Izuku grew older and so did Katsuki. They both moved on to physical training. And so Nezu introduced him to someone. That someone turned out to be Aizawa. Shota, tired eyes, scarf around his neck, patience thinner than his coffee. Training happened in the shadows of UA, after hours, long before Izuku was old enough to enroll. The room is quiet except for the soft hum of a ventilation unit and the steady tick of a clock. It's an old underground UA training chamber, dim lights, concrete floors, and the faint smell of antiseptic. Izuku kneels on a mat, a droplet of his own blood hovering between his fingers. His hands shake. His lips are pale. Focus on the flow, not the fear, Aizawa says, his voice low, calm, and infuriatingly steady. He's crouched beside Izuku, scarf loose around his neck, watching him the way someone watches a lit fuse. I can't stop it. It's moving too fast. Then slow yourself down. Breathing controls pressure. Heart controls flow. Izuku's chest rises and falls. His heartbeat pounds in his ears. The drop trembles, then stops suspended perfectly midair, reflecting the glow of the lights. Aizawa gives a small nod. Good. Again. 10 minutes later, Izuku's nose starts bleeding. Aizawa sighs, reaching into his jacket and tossing him a handkerchief. You push too far every time. You're not going to impress anyone by passing out. But rest is part of training. You can't save anyone if you're face down on the floor. Izuku stares at the drop of blood still floating, his expression a mix of awe and frustration. I don't want people to be scared of it. Then give them a reason not to be. Aizawa walks over to the control panel, dims the lights, and leans against the wall. Tomorrow, you'll learn to move it in pulses. Like a heartbeat. The goal isn't to control the blood, it's to control yourself. Izuku wipes his nose, smiling faintly through exhaustion. The lights flicker. The droplet falls, landing silently on the mat, and Izuku grins, because for the first time, it falls exactly when he wants it to. The underground gym smells faintly of metal and chalk. The mat under Izuku's feet is slick with sweat. His nose still aches from last time. Aizawa stands across from him, hair tied back, his scarf coiled loosely around his shoulders. No capture weapon, no erasure, just him. No quirk, Aizawa says flatly. You rely on it too much already. Izuku nods, heart pounding. Weiss, sensei. Stop thinking. Thinking gets you hit. Move. Aizawa steps forward, fast. Izuku raises his arm too slowly, gets swept off his feet and hits the mat hard. The sound echoes. Ow. You made it obvious. I could see the move in your shoulders before your legs even shifted. Again. Izuku gets up, rubbing his ribs. He steadies his breath and rushes in, ducking under Aizawa's arm, this time anticipating the grab and twisting his body. For half a second, he thinks he's got him. But Aizawa grabs his sleeve, uses Izuku's momentum, and flips him clean over. Izuku lands hard again. The air leaves his lungs. If your opponent's stronger, use their strength. Don't fight the current, redirect it, Aizawa says, his voice as calm as ever. Blood doesn't fight the body. It flows where it's needed. That last part clicks in Izuku's mind. He breathes in deep. Next round, he mirrors Aizawa's stance, feet loose, knees bent, arms relaxed. When Aizawa lunges, Izuku sidesteps and shoves his palm against his mentor's shoulder, redirecting the strike. It's small but clean. Aizawa's mouth twitches, almost a smirk. Better. You're starting to think like a stream instead of a wall. Izuku beams through the exhaustion. Aizawa throws him a bottle of water. Same time tomorrow, problem child. And bring snacks. You faint too easily. Izuku laughs, clutching his sore arms. Sensei. Eventually, Aizawa introduced him to his husband, Yamada Hisashi, who showed up loud, bright, and full of energy. So you're the kid who made Shota leave the house willingly, huh? Hisashi grinned, handing him cat treats. That's a miracle, you know. Their home became a second safe place, cats everywhere, warm tea, and quiet acceptance. Nizu tutored him academically, teaching biology, hero ethics, and tactical logic. Aizawa drilled him physically, hand-to-hand combat, evasion, focus under stress. He learned to calculate safe blood limits, carry plasma packets, and measure his pulse by instinct. Soon, Aizawa started calling him Problem Child Number 0. Izuku pretended to pout, but he wore the nickname like a badge. Kid, do you want to eat dinner with us and sleep over? Shota couldn't admit it out loud, but he already had a soft spot for the kid. Izuku nodded, but paused, sheepishly pulling out his phone. I have to ask my mom first. Inko said yes instantly. She was happy her Izuku was happier, and she'd do anything to keep him happy. At dinner, when they ate together, Izuku pushed his food around, thinking about something. Aizawa eyed his fidgeting. If you have something to say, kid, spit it out. Can Kaken join us for training? He blurted. He wanted him to be included and wanted them to be on the same level. Aizawa sighed and eyed his husband, who looked like he was already betting money that Izuku and Bakugo would date in the future. Fine. Izuku smiled, and after dinner he texted Katsuki. The underground U facility hums faintly, metal walls, fluorescent lights, and the sound of shoes scuffing the mat. Aizawa stands with his arms crossed, scarf hanging loose around his neck. Across from him, Izuku bounces nervously on his feet, while Bakugo just cracks his knuckles and smirks. Alright, Midoriya said you wanted to train with us. You follow my rules, you don't blow up the floor, and you listen when I tell you to stop. Understand? Got it, sensei? Don't call me sensei like that. You're not in my class yet. Bakugo smirks harder. Izuku hides a laugh. I just thought we'd both learn faster this way. Kaken's really strong with close combat, and And you're really bad at keeping your guard up. He gestures to the mat. Prove you can make this work. Bakugo takes a fighting stance, immediately low and confident. Izuku hesitates, adjusting his footing. Bakugo, don't overthink it, nerd. Move. You always say that right before you try to punch me. Katsuki smirks maniacally, because it works. Aizawa watches quietly as they clash, Bakugo quick with sharp hooks and feints, Izuku relying on flexibility and counters. Every hit echoes through the room. Izuku blocks one of Bakugo's strikes with his forearm, red energy flickering under his skin, instinctively reinforcing it. Aizawa notices immediately. No quirk. Right. He pulls back, shaking off the faint glow. Bakugo moves in again, throwing a knee toward Izuku's ribs. Izuku catches it just in time, uses the motion to pivot, and tosses Bakugo off balance. Bakugo hits the mat with a grunt. You little but Midoriya, you redirect instead of resisting. Katsuki, stop trying to overpower every fight. Use your brain. Bakugo shoots him a glare, but the respect is there. Yes, sir. Aizawa raises an eyebrow. Now that's better. They reset. Sweat drips. The rhythm becomes smoother. Bakugo's explosions are small and contained, just enough for propulsion. Izuku weaves around them, reading his movements like patterns in data. Then impetus. Izuku sweeps Bakugo's legs and pins him, one hand at his shoulder. Both boys freeze, breathing hard. Izuku blinks. I just. Don't even say it. He smirks from the mat. Lucky hit. Aizawa exhales, clearly holding back a smile. Looks like this might actually work. From now on, you train together twice a week. No killing each other. If you do, I'll erase both your quirks for a month. They both nod gratefully. Aizawa grabs his scarf and starts heading out. Don't thank me yet. You'll both be crawling out of here next time. Izuku and Katsuki make eye contact with each other before laughing and falling onto the mat. The hum of Nizu's kettle fills the silence. The little principal sits at his desk, tail twitching slightly as he flips through Aizawa's notes. Nedza grins. So, the explosive one didn't burn down the facility? Aizawa stands by the window, scarf draped loosely around his neck, tired as always. Not yet. He came close. Nedzu chuckles softly. Close doesn't count, my dear eraser. Aizawa sighs, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Midoriya's focus has improved. He's controlling his quirk in smaller bursts. And Bakugo, he pauses, thinking. He's reckless, but he listens when Midoriya talks. Eventually, Nedza smiles wide. How fascinating. Two young minds, one fueled by control, the other by chaos. What did you see between them? Aizawa leans against the wall, crossing his arms. Trust. Not perfect but real. Bakugo adapts faster when Midoriya's around. It's like he has something to prove. And Midoriya, he's calmer when Bakugo's watching. Nizu smiles knowingly. So they stabilize each other. Yeah. I wouldn't admit it to their faces, but they fight like they've been doing it for years, reading each other's timing, filling gaps the other misses. Nizu closes the folder, ears flicking forward. What do you think their potential is, Aizawa? Aizawa hesitates for a moment, eyes half-lidded. Midoriya's going to burn himself out saving people if someone doesn't keep him grounded. Bakugo's going to explode if someone doesn't remind him why he's fighting. Together. He exhales slowly. They might actually make it. Nizu pours a cup of tea, tail swaying thoughtfully. I've been considering early recommendations for UA's hero course. Their teamwork might be instructive. You want them both? Nedza grins. Of course. I never choose just one when I can have chaos and balance at once. Aizawa rolls his eyes. You're going to give me headaches. Nedzu sips his tea. You already have them, my dear eraser. You're just learning to enjoy them. Aizawa mutters something about problem children under his breath and heads for the door. As it closes, Nizu looks at the two profiles on his desk. Midoriya Izuku and Bakugo Katsuki. Blood and fire, he murmurs to himself. What an interesting match. He grew paler. His hands and feet were always cold now, his hair longer partly to keep warm, partly because Katsuki said it looked badass. They still trained together, in secret corners of the park or Izuku's backyard. Izuku took notes on Katsuki's moves, scribbling Kaken analysis number 8 at the top of the page. Why do you always write those? Bakugo complained. So I can help you improve. Izuku laid down on the grass. It was late spring. A few more days until their last day of middle school and then UA. His long curly hair spread on the grass, almost making him blend in with it. Katsuki noticed his freckles were still dark against his skin even though he was deathly pale. He couldn't help but point out to himself that Izuku was pretty, undeniably so. A faint blush rose on his cheeks. Improve? I'm already the best. Yeah, Izuku smiled, but even the best can be better. Bakugo snorted, but he read every note. When it came time to choose hero names, Izuku hesitated. Maybe something like Red Pulse, he muttered. Bakugo shook his head. You're a lifeline. Izuku blinked. Why that? Because you're my lifeline. He said it was like a challenge, but it stayed in Izuku's chest like a promise. Rain hits the window like static, soft, steady, annoying. He never liked quiet days. Too slow. Too still. Except when he's here. Izuku's sitting across from him on the floor, hunched over his notebook, muttering equations like they're secret spells. His handwriting's tiny, neat, and packed with little arrows and notes. Bakugo's math sheet looks like a battlefield in comparison. Eraser marks, scribbles, and one angry doodle of an explosion in the corner. Nerd, he thinks, but the word doesn't sting the way it used to. Who the hell cares about the surface area of a cylinder? Without looking up, Izuku answers, engineers. Or maybe structural heroes. Of course he has an answer. Bakugo scowls and taps his pencil against his teeth. So not me then. Izuku just smiles, the corner of his mouth twitching. You still have to pass, Kaken. He hates how calm that voice sounds. Always calm. Always steady. But it makes him want to keep trying, just so that calm tone stays directed at him. He leans forward a little, glancing at Izuku's notes again. They're colorful, perfect, way too extra. You could just write the DMN answer instead of an essay, you know. It helps me remember. It helps you waste paper. Izuku laughs soft, breathy, real. Bakugo pretends not to notice the way it hits something in his chest. He likes that laugh. He'll never admit it, but he likes it. They fall into a rhythm. Rain, pencils, silence. Bakugo hates math, but working next to Izuku isn't bad. He gets why Aizawa spends so much time with him. The kid's focus is crazy. An hour in, Bakugo stretches and knocks his notebook over. Careful. Izuku blurts. Relax, nerd. I got it. He reaches to grab a fallen pencil and bump. Their heads knock together. Both freeze. Izuku's cheeks go pink. Bakugo's ears feel hot. Sorry. You're fine. Just watch where that big head's going. He grumbles it out, but his pulse is stupidly fast. He focuses on his worksheet, pretending the air between them isn't weirdly thick now. When Izuku gets up to make cocoa, Bakugo glances at his notes again. Color-coded boxes. Simple steps. Efficient. He copies one of the layouts into his own notebook, half out of curiosity, half because, well, maybe the nerd's method does work. Izuku comes back, smiling, holding 2 mugs. Steam curls between them. Bakugo looks up and blurts before he can stop himself. Your system's not bad. Makes it stick better. Izuku's eyes light up like someone turned on a sun. You think so? Yeah. Just don't tell anyone I said that. They clink mugs. Cocoa sweet and too hot. The sound of rain fades into nothing. Bakugo glances at Izuku over the rim of his cup, watches the way he hums quietly while flipping through notes. It's stupid, but for once, he doesn't want to rush through it. Quiet doesn't mean weak, he thinks. It just means he's focused. He's still not sure what to call the feeling sitting heavy in his chest, but he knows one thing. He's not letting anyone look down on his nerd again. Not ever. Netsu tapped his pen on his notepad repeatedly, thinking. Aizawa was in the corner of his office, slumped on the floor, half of his body in his signature yellow sleeping bag. He's working on a training plan for both Katsuki and Izuku since they realized one can't live without the other. Is something bothering you? He asked, looking up from his paper. Ned's aside, Izuku's training. I'm missing something. Aizawa stood up straighter. I don't think we are missing anything really. You're training his mind, I'm training his body. Nedzu hummed, leaning back into his chair. We are missing the heart. Aizawa furrowed his brow. The kid already has a big enough heart. What do you mean? It's because he has a big heart that we need someone to train him. He sacrifices himself too easily. Aizawa nods in agreement. You're right, he needs to learn restraint. Like I say all the time, you can't save anyone if you're dead. Nedzu smiles widely. Who reminds you of Izuku? Aizawa sighs, muttering something about, if you know, then why do you make me guess? But still he thinks for a while before responding. Yagi. Nedzu's smile only gets wider. I'll arrange a meeting. Aizawa goes back to his work with a sigh. The air smells faintly of tea and disinfectant. The sun hasn't fully risen, soft gold light spilling through the blinds. Izuku sits nervously on a couch, his hands in his lap, fingers twitching. He's super excited to meet his idol and the reason why he and Kaken grew close when they were kids. Yesterday he had a meltdown on FaceTime with Kaken that he was finally meeting his hero, and Katsuki just grumbled that they were going to meet him either way at UA. And that he thought that Katsuki was his hero. Izuku almost laughed at Kaken's ballant display of jealousy. But even though he was meeting All Might in 1 month, he still was super excited. Nedzu and Aizawa sat in front of him, keeping him company until he arrived. Almost like he was reading his mind, All Might walked in with a boisterous, I am here. Aizawa rolled his eyes as he got up, while Izuku could barely hide his excitement. He grabbed his notebook and held it in his lap, waiting for the perfect timing to ask for an autograph. Nedzu looked fondly at Izuku and then stood up, patting All Might's leg. Let me know when you're done. All Might nodded, then turned to Izuku. You must be a young Midoriya? Izuku then stood up in a flash, bowed a full bow and handed his. Please sign this. All Might laughed and signed it. After calming Izuku down, he sat down. Now on to the serious stuff. Nedzu told me you wanted to speak to me. Izuku nodded. All Might, do you think I could be a hero with this quirk? He looks down his hands that people except a selected few have called villainous, but he never wanted to hurt anyone. Izuku will never hurt anyone, he will make sure of it. For a second, Yagi saw himself. Before the fame, before the strength. He saw the rawness of wanting to help. You know, I used to ask myself the same question. Izuku looked up in surprise. How could such a grand and kind hero look at himself with the same thoughts Izuku did? The answer, young Midoriya, isn't about what your quirk does. It's about what you do with it. Yagi smiles softly, his eyes tender. I don't see a villain when I look at you. I see a boy with a heart too big for his own good, and those are the hearts that save lives. A tear escapes from Izuku's eye. Yagi smiles, he was already growing fond of him. The sun setting behind the trees, painting the sky in streaks of gold and red. The clearing smells like burned earth and iron. Izuku stands in the middle of it, chest heaving. His sleeves are rolled up, and faint red threads pulse under his skin, glowing softly, alive. If he calculates in his head, he's used 10 to 15% of his blood, if he can just push past 20. Bakugu narrows his eyes. You're shaking. I'm fine. Just need to hold it a little longer. A few feet away, Bakugu's palms are still smoking from the last blast he threw. The air between them hums with tension, but not anger, worry. Izuku's eyes are locked on a floating stream of his own blood, twisting in the air like a ribbon. He's trying to shape it into a shield, make it hold against the shockwave of Bakugu's explosions. But every second, the red lines tremble more. You've been at this for hours. If I can't hold it under pressure, I'll never last in real combat. Izuku mutters, focusing again. Yeah, well, if you bleed out before you get there, it's pointless, dumbass. Izuku doesn't answer. He just raises his hand again and the blood forms a thin barrier, shimmering crimson in the low light. Bakugu narrows his eyes. Fine. You want to test limits? I'll give you limits. He fires a controlled blast smaller than usual, but fast. The explosion hits the barrier, and for a moment, it holds. The air ripples, the smell of ozone mixing with iron, then the shield shatters, splattering red across the dirt. Izuku stumbles back, clutching his arm. Blood drips down from his sleeve, but he doesn't stop. Izuku grits his teeth, he feels his sight blurring. Again. Bakugo growls, his glare cutting across the field. No. You're done. Kaken. I said no. He storms over, grabs Izuku by the wrist, and jars his arm up to see the black trembling veins and fading glow beneath the skin. His voice is low, raw. You think being a hero means killing yourself for practice? I want to know my limits. You already are at your limit. They're close now, too close, breath mingling, eyes locked. Izuku's face softens. I need to be strong enough to protect people. To protect you. Bakugo freezes. The words hit harder than the blast ever could. His grip loosens. Bakugo mutters, frustration evident in his voice. You already do, idiot. Izuku frowns in confusion. What? He sighs. Every diamond time you push yourself like this. Every time you don't give up. You remind me why I'm trying to. Izuku's lips twitch a faint, tired smile. So, you're saying I inspire you? Don't push it. Bakugo sighs, muttering curses under his breath as he pulls the first aid kit from his bag, something he always brings now, just for him. He kneels and starts wrapping Izuku's arm in silence. The sky fades from red to purple. The glow under Izuku's skin dies down. Next time, we will do this my way. Izuku looks at him. Less blood. Katsuki glares back. More control. Deal. Bakugo glances up at him, eyes catching the last light of the sunset, and for just a moment, his voice is softer. You're my limit, Deku. Remember that. Izuku doesn't answer, he doesn't need to. The way he looks back says everything. Izuku walks into Nedzu's office the next day. He texted him after practice yesterday that they needed to have a meeting. He assumes Kaken snitched on him, and when he asks on the ride there, he only says that the meeting is necessary. You said you wanted to see me? Izuku asks, fidgeting nervously. Nedzu hums. Yes, I found a way to help your issue. Because I imagine you don't want anyone to swoop in and save you after a fight. Izuku nods seriously and Katsuki only frowns, clearly thinking I could. Nedzu held up iron supplements. Take these every day, and every time you feel faint after a fight. Izuku nods, taking the bottle Nedzu handed him. I'm going to text Bakugo a high iron diet so you can regain energy through that too. Katsuki nods with a focused expression. I assume you guys have yet to finalize your hero costumes? Izuku smiled slightly. Both Aizawa and Nedzu are set on them being in the school already. So are they, but it gave Izuku confidence that his mentors believed so much in them. No, not yet. We still have to complete the finalized versions. Nedzu nods, stitch in synthetic emergency plasma pouches. They don't give you blood but restore fluid volume so you don't pass out from low pressure. Izuku hummed softly, pressing his finger to his lips, applying the part to his costume mentally. Alright, also I was thinking to not use my blood unless absolutely necessary, and the most that will happen to me is energy drainage. Nedzu smiles. Excellent, Izuku. I'll tell Aizawa to help you practice on that. Bakugo speaks up after staying silent, listening carefully. Can you give me a bottle of those supplements too? The nerd will forget or ignore them in some kind of way. He says fondly but with laced annoyance. Izuku blushes slightly, knowing Katsuki was right. Nedzu hands him one after he gets it from his desk cabinet as if he was already expecting that. All right, Izuku, Katsuki. I'll see you guys in a few days for a mock exam. The UA exams are 2 weeks away. The floor's a battlefield. Sheets of paper are scattered everywhere, rough sketches, color tests, and notes like insulated gloves for nitroglycerin sweat and compression mesh for blood flow regulation. Bakugo's lying on his stomach, chin in his hand, pencil tapping against the paper. Izuku's sitting, cross-legged beside him, biting the end of his pen as he focuses on a sketch. He was wearing Katsuki's hoodie and his hair was pinned up just like Inko's. He was letting it get longer since Kaken claimed he was always so cold. Izuku was growing into his baby fat, but to Katsuki's amusement his baby face still stayed. On some days he noticed how much leaner his body was getting. They were both no longer lanky kids talking about being heroes, they were here putting it into motion. Even though Katsuki will always rejoice that he has always been bigger and taller than Izuku. He was stuck at 5 feet 5 inches and didn't grow taller than that. Izuku inherited almost everything from his mother, unfortunately her height too. Katsuki was 5 feet 8 inches, a full head taller than Izuku. He looked over to Izuku, noticing the lost look in his eyes when he's thinking deeply. You're overthinking it again. Izuku puts his hands on the sides of his head in mild frustration. I'm not. I want the tubing system under the armor, not over it, so it's hidden but still accessible. And the material needs to adjust pressure when I lose too much blood. Bakugo teases slightly. You sound like Nizu and Aizawa had a kid. Izuku grimaces in disgust. That's horrifying. Bakugo snorts, but his eyes flicker to Izuku's design. It's sleek dark green reinforced armor lined with black compression fabric. The blood channel tubing is invisible under the surface, but faint red light pulses beneath the fabric when the suit's power monitor detects stress or blood loss. There's notes on the side, adding Nedzu's recommendations and pockets for more gear. It has a blood monitor screen built in, only for his eyes to track how much blood has left his body. The gloves are precision-built with tactile feedback, letting him guide his blood flows safely without external valves. Bakugo smirks with pride. That's not bad, nerd. Pretty clean. Izuku smiles. Thanks. It's practical and the glow indicator will help if I'm pushing too hard. Bakugo frowns at the mere idea. You better not push too hard, or I'll kill you. Izuku just laughs softly, cheeks pink. Noted. Bakugo flips his own paper over. His design is rough jagged armor sketches, heavy gauntlets, and an X shape strapped across his chest. Ground zero, huh? Bakugo nods. Yeah. Because I blow everything away from the center. Controlled destruction. It suits you. He hesitates, tapping his pen. You, he named mine too, remember? Bakugo remembered that discussion they had when they were 12. Yeah, you needed something cool. Lifeline fits. Because I save people? Because you're mine. Izuku's pen freezes midair. Bakugo realizes what he said and quickly clears his throat, looking away. I mean because you save me, dumbass. Like you keep my head straight in fights. Izuku looks at him fondly. Right. Got it. They fall into a comfortable silence after that, just the sound of pencils scratching, tea cooling on the table, and the faint hum of the city outside. Izuku glances at Bakugo's drawing again. Your design's really efficient, Kaken. The armor redirects blast pressure away from your core. And yours looks like something out of a sci-fi movie. You're too good at this. Izuku laughs softly. That's the goal, right? Heroes that inspire people and survive. You talk like you're already one. Izuku looks at him, eyes bright but steady. I want to be. Katsuki looks up at him, admiring the way the sun shines on his hair and eyes, making him glow. He always glowed. You will be deaf. You already act like one. Izuku doesn't say anything, just smiles, cheeks warm, and quietly writes beneath his design. Hero name, Lifeline, because even in blood, there's hope. Bakugo leans over to peek, pretending not to read, but he does. And he grins. Izuku's been meeting with All Might, having training sessions. Rescue operations, heart-to-heart talks. But in the operations he pushes himself too hard. Just like now. The gym's quiet, the kind of quiet that hums after exhaustion. The sun filters through the high windows, dust floating in the light. Izuku sits cross-legged on the floor, notebook beside him, his breathing still heavy from training. Yagi is sipping tea on the bleachers like it is the most normal thing in the world. You pushed yourself too hard again, Midoriya. Izuku shakes his head. I'm fine. I just need to control my breathing better during high output. Yagi smiles. No. I'm not talking about your quirk, my boy. I'm talking about here. He taps his chest. Your heart. You can't save people if you're breaking yourself every time. Izuku blinks, frowning a little. But if I don't give it my all, then someone could get hurt. All Might nods slowly. You have the spirit of a hero, but spirit burns fast without something to hold it. He gestures for Izuku to stand. Let's try something different today. Izuku hesitates but stands. Recall the time you've saved someone. It could be that time when you and Bakugo were little. Saving doesn't always look grand. It's the intent behind it. When fear hits, when blood loss clouds your sight, when anger rises, that's what you return to. That's your anchor. Izuku's hands clench at his sides. Like a heartbeat that keeps me going. Exactly. The heart of a hero isn't just courage, it's compassion that never fades, even under pressure. Yagi pauses for some time, watching the emotions spread. Now, tell me, why do you want to be a hero? Because I want people to feel safe when they see me. Even if I'm scared, even if I'm hurt, I want them to believe it's going to be okay. Yagi's smile falters, not from disappointment, but pride. Thanks. He claps a hand gently on Izuku's shoulder. That, young Midoriya, is why you'll surpass even me one day. Izuku's face turns red. I don't know about that. All Might laughs. Then make me eat my words, my boy. Izuku grins, raising a determined fist. I will. The moment hangs simple, glowing, steady as a heartbeat. The training room hums with fluorescent light. Rows of combat dummies stand ahead, their surfaces scarred from old battles. Izuku stands barefoot on the mat, hair tied up, still damp with sweat, breathing steady but sharp. In his hands, a faint red shimmer gathers. He's surrounded by monitors, vitals, heart rate, oxygen levels, blood pressure, all wired to a screen in the corner. If he pushes too far, the alarms will go off. Aizawa's orders. He ignores them. Okay, 10% draw. Controlled form. Calm. He exhales, and a thread of blood drifts from a cut on his palm, swirling upward. It hardens into a needle-thin blade, translucent and glowing like glass. He flicks his wrist, it shoots forward, slicing through the dummy's head cleanly. He tightens his focus, 10 threads now, dancing in the air like marionette strings. His heartbeat quickens, and each pulse sends them slicing through the dummies in unison, graceful and terrifying. He whispers under his breath, part mantra, part measurement. Pressure, balance, direction. The blood twists midair, reforms now its armor across his forearms, like crystallized scarlet glass. He charges forward, striking a dummy square in the chest. The armor shatters on impact and reforms instantly, thinner, faster. He grins faintly. Adaptive. It's working. The monitors beep faster. His pulse spikes. The blood at his fingertips trembles. He forces himself further, 20%, 30 blood trails from his nose, but his control sharpens. He whirls, sending blades arcing through the air. They hum with kinetic force, carving through the dummies with surgical precision. The room smells like iron and ozone. His own blood pools faintly beneath his feet. Then the alarm wails. His vision blurs. No, just a little more. He slams his palm to the floor. The blood around him rises like a crimson storm, hundreds of threads swirling, wrapping around the final dummy like a cocoon. He clenches his fist. Crack. The dummy crumbles to the ground in pieces. The threads dissolve midair and Izuku collapses to his knees, panting, dizzy. He wipes his nose with the back of his hand, crimson streaks across his face, but he's smiling. I need to use less blood, but I accomplished it. A voice echoes through the calm speaker, Aizawa's, tired and unimpressed but with a trace of relief. You also just blew your blood pressure monitor and scared Netsu half to death. Worth it. If you faint before I get there, I'm telling Bakugo you cried. That's cruel, sensei. Then stop making me worry. Izuku looks down at the shattered dummies, still glowing faintly with red residue. The room feels heavy, but his heart feels lighter. He's learning the edge, the razor line between control and chaos. It starts small. Izuku's hands won't stop shaking in the mornings. His fingertips are cold even in warmth. When he looks in the mirror, he's a little paler than yesterday, but he tells himself it's just from training. Now, he's sitting cross-legged on the floor of Aizawa's training room, head bowed, pulse fluttering weakly under his skin. The air smells faintly of iron again. Aizawa narrows his eyes. You're off today. Just tired, sensei. I'm fine. He crosses his arms. Fine people don't almost pass out before warm-ups. Izuku opens his mouth to argue, but the world tilts slightly. The room spins for half a second. Aizawa's scarf is around him in an instant, steadying him before he hits the floor. Aizawa's voice sounds panicked. Sit down. Izuku stammers, I can still. That's an order. He kneels, checking Izuku's wrist. His pulse is fast but weak fluttery. When was the last time you took your supplements? 2 days ago. Maybe 3. He mutters, embarrassed. And how many times have you used your quirk this week? I wanted to track the limits. You mean you've been bleeding yourself out alone again? Izuku looks away, guilt flashing across his face. If I can't handle the side effects, I don't deserve the power. Aizawa sighs, softly explaining. That's not how hero work functions, Midoriya. You don't earn power by destroying yourself. He rubs the bridge of his nose and softens. You think heroes are strong because they never fall. They're strong because they get up again carefully. Strategically. Izuku blinks hard, trying to fight the dizziness. His voice is small when he whispers, I don't want to be weak. Aizawa looks at him in fondness. If only the kid saw himself in the way Yagi, Nedzu, and Katsuki saw him. You're not. You're just human. Don't forget that part. The door creaks open and Bakugo walks in, holding 2 bottles of an electrolyte sports drink. He freezes at the sight of Izuku, pale and trembling. Bagu basically rushes over, what the hell happened? Your training partner decided oxygen and blood volume are optional. Katsuki shakes his head, glaring at him in worry and frustration. Of course he did. He drops to his knees beside Izuku, presses a drink into his hands along with an iron supplement he got from the bottle he always carries on himself. Drink it. Izuku laughs softly. He watches him until Izuku takes a few slow sips. The silence between them is heavy but familiar concern hiding under irritation. You keep this up and you're gonna fade out before we even make it to you. Izuku puts his head down. Then I'll just have to get stronger faster. Bakugo shakes his head. No. You'll get smarter about it. Izuku looks at him, surprise flickering across his tired eyes. Smarter? Bakugo nods. You're already strong, Deku. You just need to stop fighting your own body like it's the enemy. Aizawa, from across the room, pretends not to hear but smirks faintly. Finally, Bakugo said something right. Izuku finishes the drink, his breathing slowly evening out. His skin still looks ghostly, but there's color returning to his lips. Izuku softly calls his name. Kaken? Bakugo looks at him with a tender look in his eyes. Yeah. Izuku hesitates. If I can't fight one day, will you still? He cuts in. Shut up. You're fighting whether you like it or not. Just don't do it alone. Izuku laughs tired, genuine, a little broken. He leans his head back against the wall, staring up at the ceiling lights as his vision steadies. Not alone. The day of the mock exam comes up. They already went through the written part with Nedzu and they were both 100% certain they'd ace it. The mock exam is similar to the real one, but just because there's a fair chance for everyone it's a bit more different. The underground facility hums with electricity. Floodlights flicker on one by one, revealing the wide, empty testing arena scarred with old impact marks and dotted with mechanical dummies shaped like villains. Nedzu stands in the control booth, tail twitching with amusement. Aizawa leans beside him, scarf loose around his neck. Today we see what our prodigies can do alone. Aizawa sighs. You mean, how much trouble they'll cause before the medbots drag them out? Nedzu's grin widens. Exactly. Down below, Izuku and Bakugo stretch on opposite sides of the field. Both wear their casual training clothes. Izuku carries a small dagger with him, a gift from Mitsuki on his 15th birthday just in case. They exchange a quick look. Not hostile, just charged. Bakugo smirks. Try not to faint, Deku. Izuku smirks back. Try not to blow a hole in the wall, Kaken. Aizawa's voice crackles through the speakers. Objective, neutralize the dummies. You have 10 minutes. Begin. The second the buzzer sounds, Bakugo erupts forward, explosions lighting the air, his laughter echoing through the room. He slams into the first dummy, blasting it into pieces, then vaults off the debris, hitting another in midair. Nezu watches, his mobility's improved. Controls tighter. Aizawa nods. He's still overextending his right arm. He'll strain it if he keeps firing at that rate. Bakugo's explosions are small but calculated, not destructive and big like it once was. Aizawa mutters. He's learning restraint. Bakugo pants, sweat dripping down his temple. He glances up toward the observation window and mutters, "Bet Deku's trying to outdo me already." On the other side, Izuku's movements are surgical. He slides between two bots, slicing their limbs clean off with whip-like threads of hardened blood before retracting them. Every step is measured, he's not wasting a drop. When another bot corners him, he flicks his wrist, controlling the blood trail from his earlier cut to trip it and slam it into the wall. Nezu claps his tiny paws. Excellent use of environmental control. Aizawa, your student's creativity is remarkable. Aizawa only hums, but there's pride hidden in his eyes. He's reusing the blood he split at the beginning. He's been training with blood that isn't his or contaminated blood that's mixed with dirt or other fluids. It is harder and feels more sluggish because his quirk tries to read conflicting biosignatures. But he's practiced and it moves a bit more fluidly. Izuku still makes a mental note. His quirk doesn't control him, he controls it. He needs to control it better, and instead of reading the whole thing, he needs to control a part of it. His hands tremble as his head pounds. It still takes more energy and concentration, and he's reaching his limit. Izuku bites his lip. Just a little more. He dodges another bot strike, panting. Izuku finishes off the last bot and drops to his knees. Aizawa speaks through the mic. Midoriya, stop. That's your limit. Suddenly, an explosion rocks the other end of the field. Bakugo's destroyed the last major bot. They meet each other's gazes. They are filled with pride and a sense of accomplishment. We are right there. In the observation deck, Nezu claps happily. Well, they both passed in their own catastrophic ways. Down below, Bakugo walks over to Izuku, who's still catching his breath. Katsuki worriedly eyes Izuku. You overdid it again, nerd. Izuku laughs. Well, you blew up half the arena. They stare at each other for a beat, then both start laughing, quiet but genuine. Katsuki smirks. Next time, we go head to head. Izuku smiles. You're on. The morning air is sharp, the kind that wakes you up when you haven't slept. He kissed his mom goodbye before leaving. The air was crisp enough to bite, so he wore a hoodie layered over a thermal. He was always cold, even in warm weather. Izuku's hair was pinned up, but he kept his hood pulled over it, guaranteed warmth. Katsuki laughed at how bundled up Izuku looked. Nerd, you look like a demon snowman. They started walking, and despite the teasing, Izuku could feel the air around him grow warmer, Katsuki's heat leaking into the cold. On the way to you it was silent, not the uncomfortable silence of being nervous and unsure. They were confident. They arrive at the gates, and for a second Izuku is in awe. Yeah, he came here almost every day, but it was so much more real now. Then, in true Izuku fashion, trips over absolutely nothing. Katsuki reaches for him in a bit of panic, but someone reaches him before he does. Careful! A brunette with rosy cheeks smiles warmly. Izuku widens his eyes once he realizes he is floating. Was. She giggles, pressing her fingers together. Izuku's feet touch the ground again. Sorry for using my quirk on you. But it would have been bad luck if you fell, right? The girl walked on with a smile and good luck. Izuku smiles and waves. Bakugo mutters something that sounds a lot like, didn't need your help, and shoves his hands in his pockets. They keep on going to the exam room. They go to their respective seats and give each other a look before turning to their papers. Rows of students, the rustle of paper, the low hum of nerves. Izuku finishes early, too early. His pencil taps rhythmically as he rereads his answers, mind still running formulas and probabilities. Bakugo, 3 seats away, catches his eye and smirks. Show off, his expression says. Izuku mouths back, you do. Bakugo finishes soon after him and starts going to the presentation room where the battle will be explained. They talk quietly while they wait for the students to arrive. And when everyone's there they start. Yamada walks in with a bright smile. Everybody say hey. Izuku could almost laugh at the silence that followed. Aizawa warned them that his loud husband would be presenting. Izuku knew how excited Yamada could get, and it looks like this was one of the cases. Like a pro, Yamada brushed off the silence. Then I'll quickly present you to the rundown on the theatrical exam. Are you ready? He waved his hands in the air, obviously expecting a response back. But still, silence. As it says in the application requirements, you listeners will be conducting 10-minute urban battles after this. You can bring whatever you want with you after the presentation. You'll head to the specified battle center, okay? There's little cards that show them where they are going and important information about themselves. Kaken, it looks like we are in different battle centers. Izuku whispers. Bakugo nods. They aren't letting friends work together. We went over this though, so we'll be okay. Izuku nods with a soft smile. Different types of faux villains are stationed in each battle center. You earn points for each of them based on their level of difficulty. Your goal, dear listeners, is to use your quirks to earn points by immobilizing the faux villains. Of course, attacking other examiners and any other unheroic actions are prohibited. Izuku notices the printout in front of them, giving the different villains and their points, but one didn't have any points, which didn't really make sense. You didn't make any mistakes. There must be some sort of reason. Why include a threat that gives no points? He muttered quietly. Katsuki heard him and looked at his own printout and realized Izuku was right. A few rows in front of them, a tall guy with dark blue hair stands up, his hands straight up. May I ask a question? President Mike pauses a second before holding up a thumbs up. Okay. In a theatrical fashion, a spotlight shines down on the guys with dark blue hair. In the printout, there are 4 types of villains. If that is a misprint, then UA, the most prominent school in Japan, should be ashamed of that foolish mistake. We examiners are here in this place because we wish to be molded into exemplary heroes. Then the guy turned around and pointed at Izuku. You with the long curly hair and freckles distracting others with talking isn't okay. If you're here to play, go home. Izuku frowns and snaps back. You're loud for someone who doesn't understand strategy. Everyone laughs at the embarrassment visible on his face. Bakugo clenches his jaw, holding back on leaping across the room and punching the ever-living daylights out of him. He smirked when the bee just stood there in shock. Even when they were kids, Katsuki knew better than to PSS off a Midoriya. If he did, an apology followed fast. Okay. Examinee number, thanks for the great message. The court villain is worth 0 points. That guy's an obstacle, so to speak. There's one in every battle center, an obstacle that will go crazy in narrow spaces. It's not impossible to defeat, but there's no reason to defeat it either. Izuku still didn't buy it, but he couldn't think about it right now. I recommend that you listeners try to avoid it. The tall guy who was still standing sat back down and the spotlight turned off. That's all from me. Finally, I'll give you listeners a present, our school motto. President Mike said, a cheeky smile on his face. The hero Napoleon Bonaparte once said, a true hero is someone who overcomes life's misfortunes. Go beyond, plus ultra. Now, everyone, good luck suffering. They walk to the changing room and change into their usual training clothes, but still allows them to move freely. Katsuki changes into a simple tank top and sweatpants with a utility belt for some support items. Izuku notices slightly how big Katsuki was. He was never taller nor bigger any time in their friendship, but it was surprising. He assumes that because of how much strong recoil his explosions make that he works out his back, arms, and legs. Izuku wore his same old training hoodie that just said, hoodie, in kanji, paired with shorts that had thermals underneath to keep him warm in the cold weather. He had his knife that Mitsuki gave him. It was a silver one with pretty designs on the sheath. He had it strapped to his waist underneath his clothes to keep it hidden but still easily accessible. Katsuki and Izuku took a parting glance, then made their way to their assigned battlefields. While everyone is gathered, he realizes the gate is open. He makes his way towards the front. He takes out his knife and slices his palm. A small cut, precise. Izuku puts his knife back in the sheath and focuses. The blood lifts, glowing faint red as it wraps around his legs in spiraling bands. He hears President Mike urging the students behind him to move, that there is no countdown to save lives. He moves, not running, but gliding, each step propelled by a pulse of blood pressure. It's not flying, but it's close. He's faster than he's ever been. Izuku vaults over debris, slides under collapsing walls, and kicks through a small two-pointer before it can fire. Every motion is fluid, practiced like he's been building to this for years. Izuku breezes through a couple more villains with elegance. Other students stare as he passes. A few flinch when the air around him shimmers crimson. Izuku flicks his wrist towards an incoming villain, slicing its head clean off. The people around are almost terrified but are also in awe of how much control he has over his quirk. 12 points so far. Izuku spots a group of 6 villains up ahead and controls 10 more tinier strings of blood and sharpens them. He flicks his wrist towards them and immediately they crumple into chunks. Izuku sighs, his head pounding. He only used a small amount of his blood, but the dirtier his blood and less oxygenated it was, harder to control. 18 points, a little bit more. The ground shook, the shadow of the big 0-pointer fall against the ruined street. Izuku looks up, eyes wide. The students around him run away, and he's about to do that too when he looks back and sees the nice person who helped him this morning trapped under the rubble. Blood coils around him like a storm. He launches forward, the ground cracks beneath the burst of pressure. The wind whips around him, carrying a faint metallic scent. His eyes glowed red and his veins flickered black. He was using too much blood. He's climbing air itself, using bursts of blood to propel himself higher, faster, until the robot's head fills his vision. A blade of crimson hardens from his forearm, sharp, trembling, alive. He slices. The blade tears through metal, shearing circuits and wires in a burst of sparks. The 0-pointer splits in half, collapsing in a deafening explosion that sends smoke and dust swirling into the sky. For a second, Izuku hovers midair, weightless, victorious. Then his vision goes black. Uraraka stares in awe as the boy with curly green hair practically flies through the sky. The red ribbons make him look like an angel, a forbidden one. She knew his quirk involved blood. She saw him slice open his hand at the beginning of the exam. But she wasn't scared of it. That power, it saved her. She would be indefinitely grateful for it. Uraraka gasped as he used his blood to slice the 0-pointer in half, completely exploding it. His body tumbles from the sky, limp, blood glinting faintly on his forearms like faint red mist. He doesn't brace. Doesn't move. He's out cold. Uraraka's head snaps up. Her eyes widen, horror flashing across her face. Oh no! He's... Before she can think, her body's already moving. She floats the piece of robot head she was resting on. The boy blew away the piece of rubble she was trapped under with the pressure of his jump to the skies. She moves her arm out, fingers trembling but firm. Release, no, activate. Her palm glows pink, and gravity itself folds. Izuku's body slows in midair, spinning gently instead of crashing. Uraraka sighs in relief. Our release. After touches her finger pads together, she feels the bile in her throat shoot up. She kneels over, puking. High above, Nizu and Aizawa watch from the observation booth. Aizawa exhales through his nose. He pushed past his limit again. Nizu smiles faintly, tail twitching. Yes, he says, and saved someone in the process. Just like a hero should. The camera pans up to the sky, sunlight breaking through the smoke, the battlefield still humming with the aftershock of his power. The examinees crowd him, murmuring on how cool and scary he is. Ida stared in shock at the boy. He called out earlier how he fainted after such a heroic act. He clearly underestimated him. Recovery girl walks in with 2 medics behind her, carrying a stretcher and going straight for Izuku. They loaded him onto the stretcher and wheeled him out into the nurse's office. When Izuku comes to, he's hooked up to N4 drip. The slow beep of the monitor slow beside him. He observes the room. An electrolyte drink and iron supplements lay on his bedside table. He smiles and takes the bottle, cracking it open. While he takes small sips, he looks to his other side where Kaken is sleeping. He sat in a chair, Izuku's training sweater draped over him. Izuku leans over quietly, touching his face softly. He felt guilty for making Kaken worry, but he didn't regret it. He saved a life. Izuku still grimaces, recounting how much blood he used. He dangles his feet off the bed. I should wake Kaken, it's getting late out. He sees his bag in a corner of the room, carefully pulls out the 4-drip and stands to grab it. As soon as his feet hit the floor, Katsuki's eyes are open in an instant, a panicked look in his eyes as he grabs Izuku's wrist. Where are you going? Izuku's eyes widened. Kaken? I'm getting my bag. Bakugo's hands trembled as he suddenly pulled Izuku into a hug. Damn it, nerd, I thought I almost lost you. Izuku felt his eyes water, hugging him back almost immediately. I'm okay, Kaken, sorry for making you worry. A week. It's been a whole week since the exam, and Izuku's mind hasn't stopped replaying it. Every swing, every drop of blood, every faint smile from Uraraka before he passed out. He's sprawled on the couch now, still in his hoodie and sweatpants, staring blankly at the TV. Bakugo's beside him pretending to be absorbed in his phone, but his leg won't stop bouncing. Stop shaking, Izuku mutters, trying not to smile. Shut up, dirt. You're the one who's been staring at that mailbox for 2 hours. Izuku huffs, hugging his knees. You think they forgot about us? Bakugo rolls his eyes. You blew up a 0-pointer and fainted midair. They didn't forget you. Just then, an excited knock with his mom behind the door saying his name frantically. Izuku! The letter! Izuku's heart stops. He scrambles to grab it. Bakugo bolts into action, sprinting across the street to grab his own. A few minutes later, Katsuki comes back to his house with the same letter in his hand. We open it together? Izuku and Bakugo nods, motioning towards his room. They go to Izuku's room. Inko left to Mitsuki's to calm herself down. On the count of 3, they rip open the letters. A small metal disc falls into their hands and then, a flash of light. Izuku is on his bed while Katsuki is on his desk, but they listen with rapt attention, not being distracted by the other. I am here. Both boys flinch at the holographic figure of All Might popping up in Izuku's room, arms spread in his usual dramatic flair. Bakugo mutters, show off. All Might's voice booms warmly, young Midoriya. Young Bakugo. You displayed remarkable courage and intellect during your exams. Izuku freezes. Both? All Might grins. Yes. Young Midoriya, though you earned 18 combat points, there was another part of the test, something called rescue points. Knowing how smart you are, I bet you guessed it already, but the 0-pointers are heroism points or rescue points. The projection flickers, displaying a chart. Rescue points. Total. Izuku's eyes widen. 60? All Might laughs. You risked yourself for another. That's the heart of a true hero. Welcome to UA High. Bakugo's section appears next. Combat points, rescue points, total. Bakugo smirks, folding his arms. Still beat you. Izuku laughs breathlessly, tears already pricking his eyes. You really did, Kaken. The hologram flickers one last time. Congratulations. I'll see you soon. Then it fades, leaving them in stunned silence. For a second, neither moves. Then Izuku lets out a shaky laugh, half disbelieving, half overwhelmed. Kaken, so we did it. We really. Before he can finish, Bakugo grabs him by the collar and pulls him into a quick, fierce hug. Of course we did, dumbest. Like hell I was getting in without you. Izuku blinks, heat rushing to his cheeks. It's over in a second. Bakugo pulls back, face red and scowling. Don't make it weird. Izuku grins, voice soft. Too late. Bakugo snorts, throwing a pillow at him, but there's no real force behind it. The tension breaks into laughter, loud, easy, the kind that fills the room and echoes against the quiet hum of the city outside. Izuku sinks into the couch, clutching the letter to his chest, and whispers under his breath. We're really going to UA, Kaken. Bakugo glances at him, smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. Dimon, right we are, Deku. Mom, can you help me again with my hair? Izuku yelled from the bathroom. His hair was getting long and it was harder for it to pin up. He might have to cut it. Inko turned the corner and stood behind him, helping with practiced ease. Can't believe it's my baby's first day of UA. She gushes as she finishes up his hair. Izuku blushes with embarrassment. Mom. She laughs, joy in her eyes. Fine, I'll stop coddling you. He smiles softly at his mom before giving her a kiss on the cheek. Love you, Mom. Inko looks at him tenderly. Love you too, Izuku. Have a good day at school, baby. She caressed his cheek softly. Inko still remembers when he was a little baby. Sometimes she can't believe how fast her baby grew up. Izuku leaves the bathroom and changes out of his pajamas. He puts on a thermal underneath his shirt, then puts on the uniform. He does the same thing with his pants. He looks at the tie in confusion before setting it aside. Not wearing that. Izuku laces up his red boots before taking his bag and leaving his house. Like yesterday, Kaken was already there waiting for him. He was on his phone sitting on a doorstep. He looked back at Izuku when he heard the door close. Ready? Izuku nodded. It looks like you forego the tie too. Katsuki shrugged. That sheet looks tacky and plus it feels like something's choking me. Izuku laughed a bit. Kaken was wearing the same thing as him, just a bit more differently. His pants were baggier and the shirt was a bit rumpled. I might cut my hair, Izuku said, running his hands through his curls. Kaken looked at his hair. I don't think you should. You look pretty. There was a faint blush on his cheeks. Izuku looked away as he felt heat rising on his face. Guess I won't. After that, their walk to school was silent. They reached the school gates and went inside. Class 1A, right? Izuku asked. Katsuki nodded. Only the best for us. He smirked, looking at Izuku. He laughed. Who do you think will be our homeroom teacher? Katsuki shrugs. It better be someone good. Izuku agrees. The door slides open. Izuku steps in first, uniform crisp, expression calm, almost too calm. The faint red veins under the skin of his hands pulse softly. It's discreet, but not invisible. Conversations stop. Kaminari leans toward Mina and whispers, Wait, that's the kid with the blood quirk, right? Mina whispers back, Yeah. Looks creepy though. Bakugo follows right behind him, eyes sharp, daring anyone to keep talking. The tension breaks like glass. Silence. He can feel it, the unease crawling around the room. Villainous. That word hangs in the air unspoken. Then Bakugo drops into the seat beside him with a loud thud. Stop staring, extras. He's not here to drink your blood. Kaminari chokes on a laugh. Mina flinches. The class quiets immediately. Izuku's shoulders relax, just a little. Kaken, he whispers under his breath, cheeks pink. Bakugo shrugs, crossing his arms. What? It's true. You're too soft to hurt a fly. Izuku chuckles quietly, the corner of his mouth twitching up. I appreciate it. From the back, Ida raises a hand. Excuse me. You're Midoriya, correct? You're the one who destroyed that massive zero-pointer. Izuku blinks. Yeah. But I didn't destroy it, really. I just reacted. That was amazing. Uraraka chimes in from the next row, waving with a bright smile. You saved me, remember? Her voice is warm enough that the room's tension thins, curiosity replacing fear. Izuku's ears go pink. All right. I'm just glad you're okay. The sliding door slams open. Sit down, a dry voice says. Aizawa Shoyuta stands there, wrapped in his scarf, hair like a storm cloud. Everyone scrambles to their seats. He scans the class, eyes landing briefly on Izuku. There's a flicker of recognition approval before his face resets to blank. All right, welcome to UA. You're here to become heroes. Whether you look the part or not, I don't care. Izuku straightens his back, heart hammering but steady. He's been here before Aizawa's sharp words, that no-nonsense tone. But this time, he's not training in secret. He's standing among his peers. And just like that, the fear starts to fade. Because yeah, maybe his quirk still makes people flinch, but he's here. He earned it. And Kaken's right next to him, like always. Aizawa doesn't waste time. No introductions, no icebreakers, just a bored look and a sentence that makes the class freeze. He pulls out a blue, white, and red uniform. Put these on and meet me in the field. He sets them down and everyone grabs a pair before heading to the locker room. Izuku pulls out an electrolyte drink and some iron capsules, drinking a few sips before heading out. If you're here to make friends, transfer out now. You're going to show me what you can actually do. Aizawa looks at them with tired eyes. By the way, the person with the least points gets expelled. The class shouts in unbelief. Can he really do that? Yes, I can, he says with a laid-back tone. He tosses Bakugu a softball. You got the highest practical score. How far did you throw in middle school? Bakugu smirks, cracking his knuckles. 67 meters. Do it again, Aizawa says. But use your quirk this time. The ball explodes out of Bakugu's hand, soaring over the horizon. 705 meters, a voice calls from the monitor. The class cheers. Bakugu grins, basking in it until Aizawa's voice cuts through. Don't celebrate yet. You're next. He points straight at Izuku. The whispers start again. That's the blood guy, right? Gross. Isn't that dangerous? Izuku steps forward slowly, calm but focused. He catches the ball from Aizawa and turns it over in his hand like he's measuring its weight and his limits. Midoriya, Aizawa says, tone level, you faint, you're disqualified. Izuku nods once. Understood. He exhales steady, controlled. The red veins under his skin light faintly, like threads of molten glass. Bakugu watches from the side, frowning. He knows that glow it means Izuku's heart rate is climbing, blood flow ramping up. Izuku winds up, and with a soft thrum of power, his muscles tighten, blood reinforcing every fiber of his body. He throws. The ball cuts through the air, propelled not just by muscle but by pressure, a sharp wave of crimson energy coiling around his arm. The monitor blinks. 570 meters. The class stares. Mina's jaw drops. He just powered up with his blood? Kaminari whispers. That's actually kinda sick. Izuku exhales, the red fading from his veins. He sways just slightly. Aizawa's scarf flicks out, wrapping around his waist before he can fall. Stop. The whole class freezes. Aizawa's eyes glow faintly red. You push too hard, you'll pass out. Hero work's not about burning yourself out, it's about staying alive long enough to win. Izuku steadies himself, nodding, cheeks pale. Understood, sir. Bakugu scowls, stepping forward. You okay? Izuku gives a shaky smile. Yeah. I just need a minute. Aizawa releases his scarf, expression unreadable. You've got control. That's good. But don't mistake recklessness for bravery. He moves on to the next student, but there's a flicker of pride in his gaze. As the test continues, Bakugu keeps throwing glances his way, pretending he's not worried. And Izuku, sitting off to the side catching his breath, scribbles quick notes about his performance, mumbling to himself, blood reinforcement, strain tolerance, maybe 20% less output. Next time. Bakugu huffs. You're insane. Izuku smiles softly. Maybe. But it's working. Aizawa's scarf flicks lazily in the wind as he mutters. A 400-meter sprint. Use your quirks if you want. Just don't break the ground, or each other. His eyes drift to Bakugu and Izuku, already lining up side by side. That includes you too. Bakugu smirks, hands sparking. Like I need a handicap. Izuku just adjusts his gloves, steadying his breathing. Let's just not blow up the track, Kaken. Don't tell me what to do, Deku. Bakugu fires back, but there's no bite in his tone, just that old, familiar challenge. The other students gather to watch. Uraraka waves. Go, Midoriya. Kirishima whistles low. This is gonna be good. Aizawa lifts the timer. Ready. Both of them lean forward. Set. Sparks pop. A single drop of blood slips from Izuku's finger, glowing faintly red. Go. They explode off the line. Bakugu rockets forward, explosions propelling him like a cannon. Each burst tears through the air with a concussive boom. Izuku's blood flashes, pulsing with each heartbeat, speeding circulation, sharpening his focus. He launches himself forward, legs pumping faster than human limits. For a moment, they're neck and neck. Bakugu's explosions echo off the walls. Izuku's speed leaves thin streaks of red mist trailing behind him. Keep up, nerd. Bakugu shouts, blasting ahead. Izuku grits his teeth, heart pounding. Blood flow control, 60%. 70 focus. He channels oxygen, accelerates his heart rate, and pushes harder. His vision sharpens, colors blur. He shoots forward, matching Bakugo's pace again. Their classmates cheer Mina, yelling, "They're insane!" At the final turn, Bakugo pushes off with a roar, an explosion echoing like thunder. Izuku, gasping, tightens his fists, his blood to whip off the track's edge, slingshotting himself ahead. They cross the finish line at the same instant. The scoreboard flashes. First place, Midoriya and Bakugo tie. The crowd erupts. Bakugo lands hard, breathing ragged, eyes wide. "You?" He pants, "You actually tied with me." Izuku's face is pale, but he smiles, sweat dripping down his neck. "Guess, all that training paid off, huh?" Bakugo stares for a second and for once, doesn't bark back. He just smirks, shoving Izuku's shoulder lightly. "Don't get cocky, Deku. Next time, I'm blowing past you." Izuku grins, holding out a trembling fist. "Looking forward to it." Bakugo bumps it, small sparks crackling between them, heat meeting heartbeat. Aizawa sighs, scribbling something on his clipboard. Tied first, with no property damage. The sandpit stretches ahead, sunlight catching the faint shimmer of quirks activating all around. The students line up, buzzing with energy. Aizawa pushes his scarf back and says flatly, "You can use your quirks. Just don't destroy the field." Kirishima cracks his knuckles. "Oh, this one's gonna be fun." Bakugo grins, rolling his shoulders as sparks flicker in his palms. "Watch and learn." He takes off, boom. The explosion launches him halfway across the pit, landing with a spray of sand and a cocky smirk. 6.9 meters, Aizawa calls, unfazed. "Dean right," Bakugo mutters, brushing off his hands. Izuku steps up next, pulse quick but steady. He glances at Bakugo, who's already watching him, arms crossed. "Don't hold back, nerd," Bakugo calls out. Izuku nods. "Wouldn't dream of it." He focuses, blood pulses faintly through the translucent lines beneath his gloves, glowing softly crimson. He exhales, flexes, and launches forward. Instead of an explosion, there's a low thrum like a heartbeat magnified. A pulse of energy bursts from under his feet as he boosts himself forward, gliding cleanly across the pit and landing almost weightlessly. The sand barely scatters. The board flashes, 6.5 meters. "Not bad," Aizawa says under his breath. Bakugo smirks, firelight glinting in his eyes. "You're catching up." Izuku smiles back, still panting. "Guess I'm finally keeping pace." Around them, the rest of 1A watches quietly. The villainous Quirk, Rumor, feels smaller now. They're starting to see something else in the way he moves: precision, control, and heart. They breeze through the rest of the tests. Izuku really isn't nervous because he knows that he has control over his quirk and he did his best for everyone on the tests. If he thought about it seriously, there's no way anyone would be expelled. Aizawa-sensei is playing a ruse. The field is quiet now, just the sound of the wind brushing through the trees and the faint hum of nerves. The students stand in a loose line, some sweaty, some exhausted, all waiting for their fate. Aizawa scrolls through his tablet, eyes unreadable behind his scarf. Finally, he turns it toward the projector, and a holographic board flashes up in front of them: the rankings. Katsuki Bakugo, Izuku Midoriya, Shoto Todoroki, Tenya Ida, Achiko Uraraka, and so on, down to the bottom of the list. Gasps ripple through the class. "Wait, Midoriya's second?" Kaminari blurts out. "But isn't his quirk like blood or something?" Zero scratches the back of his head. "Yeah man, that's kinda creepy, but also cool." Mina leans forward. "Still, second place? He beat half of us easy." Aizawa's voice cuts through the chatter. Midoriya's control, analysis, and combat awareness outweigh his stamina issues. If any of you were paying attention, you'd realize he was strategizing every step of the way. He pauses, then adds dryly, "Bakugo's raw power gives him first." "Barely." Bakugo smirks, arms crossed. Figures." He glances sideways at Izuku, who's standing just a few feet away, hair still messy from the test but a small, proud smile tugging at his lips. Izuku looks at him and chuckles softly. Guess I didn't do too bad, huh? Bakugo snorts, stepping closer. You're lucky I didn't blow up the finish line. Maybe next time you'll try, Izuku teases, eyes gleaming with challenge. The class watches the exchange. There's something magnetic about it. Friendly rivalry, sure, but also something deeper neither of them wants to name. Aizawa yawns and stretches his scarf back over his shoulders. Anyway, no one's getting expelled today. Half the class collapses in relief. Welcome to UA, he says flatly, already walking off. Try not to die before midterms. Bakugo and Izuku share a look, exhaustion and adrenaline still buzzing through their veins, and for the first time since the test began, they both grin. Ugh, I'm so tired, Izuku sighs as they exit. The school gates. Katsuki passes him his electrolyte sports drink that he was sipping on. Good job on not fainting today, nerd. Katsuki says as he eyes Izuku, he just looks like he needs sleep, not that he needs more blood. Midoriya. Wait. He turns around to see the tall guy that tried to call him out at the presentation. Yes. He give him a few minutes to catch his breath. I need to say, I'm so sorry for underestimating you and causing you trouble. Izuku smiles softly. No worries, we are classmates now, you don't have to say sorry. Bakugo scowls. Yeah, you have to say sorry. Ida ignores Katsuki and turns to Izuku once again. I have to say. Hey. The brown-haired girl runs up to them. Are you guys heading towards the train? Wait for me. Yeah, we are. My name is Ochako Uraraka, you're the super cool guy who helped me. She gushed. Bakugo watched with a scowl. Only he and Deku were supposed to walk home together, not with any more of these extras. Izuku scratches his head in embarrassment. It's not a big deal really, anyone there would have done the same thing. She shakes her head. No, Deku, you literally saved me and looked so cool doing it. Izuku's eyes widened in response to her using the nickname Kaken gave him. Uraraka then says, why does Bakugo call you Deku either way? Doesn't it mean useless? Bakugo scowls a little bit more. Back in daycare, some punk started calling him Dekunibo, 'cause he was a late bloomer. So I gave it a new meaning, my version. Something nobody else gets to use. He glares at Uraraka, who doesn't notice it at all. And Deku does sound like Dekairu, the one who can do it. Izuku smiles, his cheeks rosy at Katsuki's explanation. Ida hums, well then why do you call Bakugo Kaken, then? Izuku blushes a bit. Well, it reminds us both of a time before things got complicated. It feels nostalgic, safe. Like home. Izuku softly explains it as they walk to the train station, to which Ida and Ochako both nod. Bakugo only looks at his nerd being basked in the attention he's always deserved, but somewhere in his heart, he wanted to be the only one to bask his nerd in attention. The morning at UA began with a blur of chatter and half-awake students stumbling into English class. Present Mike was loud as always, his voice echoing off the walls like an overexcited DJ. Good morning, Class 1A. Are you ready to learn some English? A collective groan answered him. Izuku sat near the middle, his notebook already open, translating keywords while trying not to flinch every time Mike boomed another example. In front of him, Bakugo was leaning back in his chair, barely pretending to listen, muttering, why the hell do we need English to punch villains? Izuku stifled a laugh. Communication, Kaken. Yeah, whatever, nerd. During lunch, Izuku's in the line waiting for Kaken to get them electrolyte sport drinks. Shinso walks by the line, searching for a spot when Izuku calls him over. Shinso-kun. Over here. He waves him over with a smile. He mutters a small thanks and stands next to Izuku. It's quiet for some time before Shinso breaks the silence. Midoriya, I have to ask, how do you do it? Izuku tilts his head in confusion. Do what? Shinso scratched his head. Believe what everyone says about your quirk. I mean, like, my quirk is brainwashing and well. He groans. People hear brainwashing and assume I'm dangerous. I used to think maybe they were right. He pauses. That maybe I was just born wrong. Izuku's expression softens because he's heard that before, from doctors, teachers, specialists. You're not wrong, Shinso. Your quirk doesn't decide that you do. Shinso smiles faintly. That sounds like something All Might would say. Izuku chuckles. He did say it once. I just believed him. They fall quiet again, but it's a comfortable silence this time. The line bustles with active students, paying for their lunches and conversations between themselves. You ever wish your quirk was different? Shinso asks suddenly. Izuku glances down at his hands, pale, faint red lines tracing beneath his skin. Every day, he admits. When I was little, I thought I'd never be a hero. People said my quirk was made to hurt, not save. But then I met people who believed in me, who told me maybe it's not about what it looks like. Maybe it's about how I use it. Shinso tilts his head, curious. And how do you use it? Izuku smiles a little, gaze drifting out the window. To keep people alive. That's enough for me. Shinso watches him for a long moment. He's not used to people meaning what they say. Finally, he mutters, you know, you might actually believe that. Izuku grins, a little sheepish. I have to. Otherwise, I'd be scared of myself. For the first time, Shinso chuckles. It's small, tired but real. Guess we're both the type who turned villain quirks into hero tools. Izuku nods, eyes warm. Then maybe we're not so different. Aizawa met them in the classroom, to tell them to take their costumes and head to the locker room for changing. They were going to go through combat training today. The locker room buzzes with nervous energy. Metallic clicks, zippers, the hiss of compressed air as support gear locks into place. Every sound feels amplified in the heavy silence before their first real hero exercise. Izuku stares at his reflection in the mirror, tugging at the collar of his new costume. It's everything he designed: dark green reinforced fabric, slim armor plates layered over vital points, and faint red lines glowing beneath the surface, the tubing that channels his quirk safely. A thin face guard rests around his neck, stylized after All Might's smile, though his is smaller, more subtle. His hair was pinned up like his mom's, but of course his hair was curlier and more unruly than hers. He adjusts his gloves. Don't overdo it. Don't lose control. Just breathe. The door slides open and Bakugu steps out of his section, tugging his gauntlets into place. His costume is bold, heavy, sharp, and loud, with orange accents that look like small explosions. He looks powerful, confident. Their eyes meet. Bakugu stops mid-step. Deku. His suit fit him tightly, showcasing his lean body, but he still had a bit of a feminine look. Katsuki looked away and tried to focus on something else. His gaze flicks over the faint glow tracing Izuku's veins. For a split second, he frowns, not out of fear, but out of worry. Then he smirks. You look like a DMN sci-fi hero. Izuku laughs under his breath. Better than looking like a walking grenade. Bakugu snorts, but the tension in his shoulders eases. Tisich, whatever. Don't faint today, got it? Can't make promises, Izuku teases softly. Before either of them can say more, a familiar booming voice cuts through the hall. All right, young heroes. It's time to move. They step out into training ground beta, and the sight hits them like a spark. All Might stands there, cape billowing, beaming with pride, the symbol of peace in full costume. Welcome, Class 1A. This is our first combat training lesson, he declares. Today, you'll face battle conditions. The class murmurs, excitement mixing with nerves. All Might continues, gesturing to the massive replica of an urban block behind him. Villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in this building. Heroes must find and secure it. The villains must protect it. The team that achieves their objective wins. Mina gasps, we're actually fighting? Kaminari grins, finally. Shinso, standing quietly beside them, murmurs, so, hero morality test, huh? Izuku catches his tone dry, calm, almost detached, and offers a reassuring nod. You'll do great, Shinso. All Might beams. Now, let's draw lots for teams. Izuku and Ochako. Bakugu and Ida. Todoroki and Shoji. Ojiro and Hagakure. Siro and Kiri. Tokoyami and Tsuyu. Momo and Shinsu. Kami and Jair. Koda and Sato. Aoyama and Ishido. All Might calls out. Team A, Bakugu and Ida. You'll play the villains. Team D Midoriya and Uraraka. You're the heroes. Izuku's stomach drops. Uraraka cheers. Bakugo smirks. Of course. All Might's voice echoes across the comms. Begin. The building looms before them dark, metallic, and silent except for the faint hum of security sensors. Izuku presses his hand to the wall, eyes half-lidded as his quirk hums quietly. Through the faintest vibration, he can sense Ida's movement fast, methodical, pacing near the bomb. Bakugo, though, he's harder to miss. The blood in his body moves hotter, faster. He's waiting. Hunting. Okay, Izuku whispers. He's moving on the second floor, southeast corner. Ida's by the target. Uraraka blinks in awe. You can feel that? He nods. Just stay close. I'll handle Kaken. Moments later explosion. Bakugo bursts through the wall, smoke and dust flying. Found you, Deku. A fiery explosion tears through the far wall, smoke and dust scattering. Bakugo bursts through like a living bomb, eyes locked on Izuku. Izuku barely has time to react. Blood flickers along the tubing on his suit as he raises his hand, pulling a thin crimson barrier into existence just in time to block the blast. Uraraka shields her face, stumbling back. Bakugo lands hard, smoke curling off his palms. Don't play defense with me, Deku. Izuku's stance lowers, every muscle sharp and controlled. You didn't even say hi first. Bakugo grins. Didn't need to. Another explosion launches him forward. Izuku counters with a sweep of his hand, blood crystallizing into sharp threads that whip toward Bakugo. The ground cracks under the shock. Uraraka gasps. Midoriya. Izuku steps back just in time, his breathing steady but shallow. The glow under his skin pulses faster, too fast. He can feel it, the pressure climbing, the burns spreading up his arm. Bakugo notices. You're already overheating. Then I'll end it fast. They collide again. Fire meets blood, one burning, one alive. Bakugo's explosions scorch the air. Izuku's crimson whips twist and block in perfect rhythm. Every movement is history repeating, two kids who grew up side by side, clashing with everything they've learned since. Uraraka darts off to find the bomb, trusting Izuku's instincts to hold Bakugo back. Bakugo feints left, propelling himself backward with a mid-air blast. You're good, but you can't keep it up. Izuku steadies himself, a faint tremor in his hands. Guess I'll have to try. He raises both arms, veins glowing deep red. For a second, Bakugo hesitates because the glow isn't just under Izuku's skin anymore. It's spreading into the air, faint trails forming behind him. Izuku moves faster than before, boosting his body with a burst of oxygenated blood. It's like a heartbeat turned into propulsion, each step a pulse. He's faster, way faster. Izuku charges, closing distance in a blur. Bakugo barely crosses his arms before a red shockwave slams into him, throwing him back into the wall. Dust fills the air. Izuku's chest heaves, his glow flickers. His lips are pale. You okay, Kaken? Bakugo pushes himself up, wiping blood from his lip. You're still holding back. Before Izuku can answer, All Might's voice crackles through the comms. 2 minutes remaining. Upstairs, Uraraka spots the bomb, Ida guarding it. She uses her quirk to float debris, creating a distraction before charging in. Down below, Bakugo goes in again, gauntlets blazing. You're not winning this round, Deku. Izuku braces. I'm not trying to. He slams his palms together, and the blood in the air solidifies an expanding crimson barrier that redirects the explosion upward. The impact sends a shockwave through the building. At the same moment, Uraraka touches the bomb and shouts, "We did it!" The buzzer blares. Match over. Hero team wins. Silence falls except for their ragged breathing. Bakugo's still standing, smoke curling off his hands. Izuku's on one knee, panting, a faint trickle of blood running from his nose. Bakugo walks over, scowling. You're gonna kill yourself doing that. Izuku looks up at him, eyes soft despite the exhaustion. You worry too much. Bakugo clicks his tongue, tearing open a sports drink from his utility belt and tossing it at him. Drink. You look like you're gonna pass out. Izuku smiles faintly. Thanks, Kaken. Bakugu mutters under his breath, "Dean nerd," but his voice is quieter this time. From the observation deck, All Might claps. Excellent work, young Midoriya. You used your quirk creatively without endangering your partner. And young Bakugu, your strength and drive were truly explosive. Izuku bows his head, cheeks pink from the praise and maybe from the way Bakugu's still standing a little too close. All Might grins proudly. Now then, let's move on to the next match. The air inside their assigned building is freezing. By the time the announcement, "Begin," echoes through the speakers, a thin layer of frost is already crawling up the walls. Todoroki's breath fogs. I want to end this fast. He raises his hand. Ice blooms across the hall, blocking most exits. Invisible footsteps shuffle in the distance. Ojiro's tail flicks, sweeping dust. Hagakure, keep moving. He's using large-scale attacks. We wait for an opening. Todoroki's ice spikes forward. Ojiro dodges, propelling himself off a frozen wall with a tail strike. He grabs Shoji's extended limb, yanking him off balance, but Shoji's other arm stretches, looping around Ojiro's waist and hurling him into a wall with surprising strength. The crash echoes, and for a split second, Hagakure's footsteps scuff against the ice. Todoroki pivots, his hand sweeps sideways, sealing the corridor in a thin, glimmering barrier. The air stills. Captured, he says simply. Hagakure groans, her outline barely visible as Shoji wraps a scarf-like limb around her wrist. Yeah, you win. Totally unfair, ice guy. Todoroki doesn't answer, but there's the faintest curve of a smile at the corner of his lips. The starting bell rings, and Kirishima slams his fists together, skin hardening instantly. All right, Zero. Let's give them something manly. Zero grins. Already on it. He fires tape lines across the walls, setting up a makeshift grid. Dark shadow bursts from around a corner, massive and quick. Kero, watch your flank. Tsuyu calls, leaping up and sticking to the ceiling. Kirishima charges straight in, clashing with Dark Shadow head-on. Sparks of force ripple through the hall. Man, this guy's tough. Kirishima laughs as he braces, his hardened skin cracking slightly from the impact. Zero swings an overhead, firing tape toward Tokoyami, who ducks just in time, using Dark Shadow to slice through the webbing. Tsuyu's tongue lashes out, wrapping around Zero's arm midair. Sorry, Zero-kun, she says before flinging him into a wall. Ao still counts as teamwork, he groans, grinning. Kirishima seizes the distraction and barrels forward, slamming his shoulder into Tokoyami's chest. They tumble, and Zero recovers fast enough to tape both Tsuyu and Tokoyami's wrists to the floor before they can counter. Zero pumps a fist. Teamwork, baby. Tsuyu sighs, puffing her cheeks. Kero, that was impressive. Messy but impressive. Kirishima laughs, offering Tokoyami a hand up. All in a day's work. This fight starts quieter, two thinkers on one side, two energy-based quirks on the other. Jairu plugs her jacks into the floor. They're upstairs, right corner. Kaminari grins, electricity crackling. Perfect. Let's shock 'em and rock 'em. But the moment they enter the hall, smoke grenades pop around them. Momo's creations. Kaminari coughs, disoriented. Hey, what's with the fog machine? A voice cuts through the haze. So noisy. Shinso steps forward, purple scarf coiled like Aizawa's. You fall for every distraction. Was. Kaminari starts to shout back. And freezes. Eyes glaze. Body stiffens. Jairu yanks her jacks out, panicking. Kaminari. Too late, Momo's calm voice calls from behind her. A net cannon fires thick, polymer strands slam into Jairu's side, pinning her before she can dodge. Shinso deactivates the control, exhaling. Not bad teamwork. Momo nods, brushing her hair back. You're learning to time your quirk well. Shinso smiles softly. Sato's already munching sugar cubes before All Might even says, go. Aoyama's sparkling cape glints like a disco ball under the lights. Let us dazzle them, Mademoiselle Ishido. Aoyama announces dramatically. Ishido giggles. Sure thing, Sparkle Boy. Let's go wild. Koda flinches at the sudden noise, trying to summon nearby pigeons from outside. The building trembles slightly as Sato smashes through a wall. Ashido's acid sprays wide, sizzling across the floor to block Sato's path, but he charges through anyway, hardened sugar energy coursing through him. Too slow. Ashido leaps, flipping over him, only for Koda's birds to swarm in through a broken window. Whoa, what the? She yelps as pigeons flap chaotically around her, disorienting her enough for Sato to grab her arm gently. Meanwhile, Aoyama aims his naval laser dramatically. Behold my radiance. The beam hits a mirror shard one of Ashido's acid puddles had solidified just enough to reflect it. The light bounces straight back, narrowly missing him. Sato sweat drops. Did you just blind yourself? Aoyama groans, holding his forehead. Beauty can be a curse. All Might's voice echoes from the speakers, half laughing. Heroes win. Ashido snickers, rubbing her arm where she was tagged. Well, that was chaotic. Sato smiles sheepishly. Kind of got lucky. Koda just signs softly with his hands, blushing as the birds land on his shoulders. The arena smells faintly of smoke and ozone. Everyone's sweating, bruised, and buzzing with leftover adrenaline. All Might has dismissed them for the day, but no one's ready to leave just yet. The class gathers in loose circles trading stories, laughter, and a few bragging rights. Kirishima slaps Ciro's shoulder. Bro, that dark shadow punch almost cracked my ribs. You saw that? Totally manly though. Ciro grins. Yeah, and your face when Sue launched me into the wall? Priceless. Kero, teamwork worked in your favor this time. But next time, we'll strategize better. Tokoyami was calm as ever. Dark Shadow was pleased with the challenge. Kirishima blinks. Did he just compliment us? Ciro laughs. I think so. Thanks, man. Across the room, Hagakure waves her gloves dramatically. You guys, Todoroki's ice almost froze my hair. If I still had visible hair. Ojiro rubs his arm, chuckling, at least we lasted longer than most. He's way too calm under pressure. Todoroki shrugs, sipping from a water bottle. You both adapted quickly. That was good teamwork. Hagakure gasps. Did he just give a compliment? Shoji nods slowly. It's rare. Accept it while it lasts. They all laugh, even Todoroki just a little. Momo is kneeling beside Shinso, showing him the video from their battle. Momo points at the monitor. Your timing was perfect though. You triggered Kaminari's response mid-sentence. Shinso smiles. It still took me 2 tries. He's loud. Jairu laughs from across the table. Hey, we almost had you. Momo chuckles. Almost. She smiles. But it was good coordination. Kaminari leans over, pointing at his head. Yeah, until the brain boy here hijacked me like a bad video game. Shinso looks at him tenderly. Maybe don't respond to taunts next time. Kaminari teases him, a faint blush on his cheeks. Oh, so now you're giving me life advice? Jaira cackles. Please. You need it. Everyone laughs again, easy and familiar. On the other side, Ashido and Aoyama are dramatically recounting their match to Sato and Koda. Ashido waves her hands around excitedly. Okay, but tell me that bird swarm wasn't planned. That was terrifying. Koda rubs the back of his neck, shy smile forming. They, wanted to help. Aoyama strikes a pose, cape fluttering dramatically. And yet my beauty was too bright even for myself. Sato laughs. You literally blinded yourself, dude. Ashido giggles. Most heroic self-KO I've ever seen. Izuku and Bakugo stand off to the side with Uraraka and Ida, watching everyone unwind. Uraraka looks at the rest of them fondly. Everyone's really amazing, huh? It's hard to believe we're all new at this. Ida nods statically. Indeed. The level of control and tactical thinking was impressive. Especially Midoriya's. Izuku waves his hands frantically. No, everyone did great. You all adapted really fast. Bakugo just snorts, arms crossed. They better have. Heroes don't get do-overs. Uraraka tilts her head. You're kinda scary sometimes, Bakugo. He glares at her, then sighs. Whatever. You did good, round face. Her eyes widen. Wait, was that a compliment? Izuku laughs softly, eyes flicking toward Bakugus. For a second, their usual tension melts away, both of them quietly proud of how far they've come. All Might's voice calls out from across the room. Splendid work, everyone. You all showed true spirit today. As he beams down at them, the students glance around, bruised, exhausted, but grinning. The following weekend, the air at Yaoyorozu's mansion feels like something out of a dream. Marble floors. Chandeliers. A private study hall that's bigger than their entire classroom. Kaminari's jaw practically hits the floor. Bro, she's loaded. Momo laughs nervously, waving her hands. Please, it's not that big of a deal. It's huge. Ashido spins in a slow circle, eyes wide. You could fit the whole class in here. We are the whole class, Jair mutters, deadpan. They spread out across long tables, books and snacks scattered everywhere. Sato and Koda quietly set out baked goods. Shinso claims a corner, flipping through Izuku's hero analysis notes. Izuku's other notebook is open too, full of tiny sketches and equations, the words, Quirk energy output blood volume ratio, scribbled in red pen. Bakugo glances over, frowning. You're supposed to be studying math, not planning a surgery. Izuku laughs softly. It's kind of the same thing. Not even close, Bakugo mutters, but there's no bite in it. I just think if I use the move I pulled to save Uraraka in a real fight, it would be super useful. Katsuki nods. Well, I didn't see it for myself, but if it gets you out of a battle without fainting, I say go for it. Just don't keep beating yourself about fainting afterwards. Izuku smiles softly, leaning against Katsuki comfortably. At another table, Uraraka and Ida are trying to explain a problem to Kaminari. Ochako points at the math problem. So you just carry the one. Kaminari has his hands on his cheeks. Wait, I thought we were dividing. Ida gestures to the notebook. We were, but then you multiplied incorrectly. Kaminari groans dramatically. Math is my villain arc. Tsuyu flicks his forehead. Karo, pay attention. You'll regret it during the test. Already regretting it now, he whines. Across the room, Todoroki sits beside Shoji, both quiet, Todoroki flipping through a hero law textbook while Shoji's extra hands jot down neat notes. Meanwhile, Mina tries to quiz Jairu, but they end up gossiping instead. So, Mina whispers, elbowing her, you think Midoriya and Bakugo are like a thing? Jairu's earjacks twitch. Not officially. But, do you see Bakugo's face when Midoriya looks ready to faint? Mina grins. Oh, I saw. Boy looked ready to punch the universe. Jairu chuckles. They're complicated. Complicated's just code for in denial, Mina teases. Later, as the sun dips low through the huge glass windows, Aizawa's voice crackles faintly from the class group chat. Hope you're all using your time wisely. No property damage, please. Half the class laughs. Shinso replies. Promise nothing. As the study session winds down, Momo brews tea and everyone drifts toward the lounge. Izuku curls up on the couch, notebook in hand, tired but content. Bakugo drops next to him, warming him up with his body heat. You're still thinking about the fight, aren't you? Bakugo asks quietly. Izuku hesitates. I used too much blood. I need better control. If that had been a real mission. Bakugo cuts him off with a low growl. You saved her. That's what matters. Izuku looks up, surprised by his tone. It's soft, almost protective. Bakugo looks away immediately, ears pink. Just don't pull that reckless crap again, got it? Izuku smiles faintly. I'll try. You better. Around them, the class laughs and talks Kaminari's dramatic stories, Ashido showing dance moves, Ida scolding them for roughhousing in a mansion. For a brief, glowing moment, it feels like home. Izuku leans back, watching everyone, feeling that warmth in his chest. For the first time, he's not the boy people whispered about. He's part of something. Bakugo glances over again, catches his small smile, and looks away, pretending not to notice how his heart stutters in sync with the quiet pulse of Izuku's blood. The next day, the press swarmed the gates. Microphones, cameras, flashes all blurring together. Izuku blinked, focusing pulses. He could feel them. Dozens of heartbeats. None hostile. Just excitement, curiosity. But he couldn't read one. He frowned. Maybe it was a student. He noted that quietly to himself. Not dangerous, just loud. Aizawa droned from behind his sleeping bag. Good job at combat training. You're all still alive, so I'll call that progress. Then, glancing at the charts. Midoriya, Bakugo try to cause less destruction next time. Both muttered a reluctant, "Yes, sir." Well, today you guys are choosing a class representative. Decide it before the end of today. He states tiredly before going back into his yellow sleeping bag. Ida stood and raised a hand. I propose we hold a vote. Democracy will determine our leader. Everyone agreed. Papers passed around. When the votes were counted, Izuku had 4. Momo had 3. Izuku froze. What? Me? Uraraka smiled. You're smart, and you stayed calm during combat training. Bakugo grumbled something about DMN nerds with leadership complexes. Lunch was peaceful until the alarms blared. Security level 3. Trespassers at the gate. Panic explodes instantly. Students shove through the hallways, shouting. Trays clatter to the ground. Ida shouts over the noise, "Everyone please. We must evacuate in an orderly fashion." But no one listens. The tide of bodies pushes too hard, too fast. Izuku's eyes widen as he feels those same pulses, just simple curiosity, no malice. Izuku grabs Ida's arm. It's the same heartbeats from this morning, the reporters. It's not a villain attack. Before Ida can reply, Izuku's swept away by the crowd. Bakugo lunges after him, shouting, "Deku!" He pushes through elbows and chaos, scanning wildly until he catches a flash of green hair. Damn it. Ida finally manages to think. Uraraka. Use your quirk on me. She touches his shoulder. He floats upward, using his quirk to go to a point where everyone can see him. His voice booming above the chaos. Everyone calm down. It's just the press. No danger. The panic slows, breath by breath. Students finally start to listen. Bakugo finds Izuku against a wall, panting but unhurt. You good? He growls, half angry, half relieved. Izuku nods weakly. Why? Thanks, Kaken. Bakugo scowls, but his hand lingers a moment longer on Izuku's shoulder before pulling away. Back in class, things settle. Momo and Izuku were supposed to announce the rest of the positions in addition to class rep and deputy. Izuku blushes, scratching the back of his neck. Ida's better for it. The class murmurs, and eventually, Izuku insists. I think Ida should be class rep instead of me. He's got the leadership and the focus. Ida freezes, eyes wide, then bows sharply. Except, I will do my utmost to lead responsibly. The class cheers. Even Aizawa smirks faintly from his cocoon. Good. Now maybe you'll stop shouting. The day ends with laughter. Relief. Outside, the sun dips, low red light spilling through the windows like blood and fire. Izuku leans on the railing by the stairs, staring out at the horizon, Bakugo beside him in silence. He stares at him. He never realized until now, but Izuku is pretty. So pretty. Sure, he said it a few times in passing, but here is where it really sunk in. Izuku is pretty. The morning feels too calm. Aizawa stands at the front of the room, hair unkempt, scarf draped lazily around his neck. Today's exercise, he says, will focus on rescue training. You'll be taken to a facility called the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, USJ for short. His tone is flat, but a hint of warning lingers behind his eyes. You may wear your hero costumes if you wish, but they're not required. A few students immediately start buzzing, Ashido and Kaminari already comparing costume tweaks. Izuku glances down at his notebook, thoughtful. Maybe I'll skip the costume, he murmurs. It'll be easier to move if something unexpected happens. Bakugo scoffs, tugging at his gloves. I'm wearing mine. Not going half-butted into anything. Izuku smiles softly. Wouldn't expect you to. The bus ride hums with conversation, everyone chatting over each other, windows down, sunlight flickering across the seats. Kaminari's cracking jokes. Tsuyu's talking quietly with Tokoyami about frogs versus birds. Kirishima and Bakugu are mock-arguing over who would win in a fight without quirks. Izuku sits by the window beside Bakugu. The wind catches his hair, his thoughts quiet for once, he lets himself relax. Bakugu leans his head back, resting his head against Izuku's his soft green hair giving him a cushion. Eyes half closed. You overthinkin' again, nerd? Izuku laughs faintly. Always. Kaminari leaned back in his seat, stretching with a yawn. Man, rescue training sounds way easier than fighting robots, he said, flashing a grin across the aisle. Maybe this time I won't fry my brain. Across from him, Izuku looked at him, eyes wide with interest. Actually, about that. Oh no, Katsuki muttered under his breath. He's starting the analysis voice. Izuku blinked, oblivious. I've been thinking about your quirk, he continued earnestly, leaning forward. If you could direct your output more precisely, you could reduce your risk of neural feedback. Kaminari tilted his head. What? You know, Izuku said, flipping open his notebook to a page covered in neat sketches diagrams of Kaminari's quirk use, labeled circuits, and costume ideas. You said when you overdo it, you short-circuit, right? I think that's because your discharge is diffused through too many nerve pathways instead of a focused conduit. Okay, you lost me at diffused, Kaminari said, rubbing the back of his neck. Izuku smiled, sheepish. Sorry. Basically your body's great at generating electricity, but not at channeling it. You could train your quirk like an engineer instead of a generator. Kaminari blinked, still half lost, but intrigued. An engineer, huh? Izuku nodded, excitement bubbling over. Exactly. Think of it like wiring. You can either dump all your energy at once, which causes a short, or you can send it through a stable line. If you used your gauntlets or even a grounding strip in your costume, it could stabilize your discharge. Kaminari leaned forward now, grin returning. Dude, you sound like you built me in a lab or something. Izuku's face went bright red. I like to study how people use their quirks. You're really strong, Kaminari. It's just about control, not power. That made Kaminari pause. The usual lazy grin softened a bit. No one's ever said that before. Usually it's like, hey, don't fry yourself, bro. Izuku chuckled quietly. You're not your mistakes. You just need the right current flow. For a second, Kaminari just stared at him, surprised by how serious Izuku's tone was. Then he smiled again, genuine this time. If we make it through today, I'm letting you help me test this grounding idea. I don't want to end up drooling on myself every time I fight. Izuku laughed softly, his tension easing for the first time since boarding. Deal. From the front, Aizawa's voice cut through the chatter. We're almost there. Stay focused. The bus fell into quieter murmurs again. Kaminari glanced at the window, sunlight glinting off his lightning bolt hairpin. Guess it's showtime, huh? Izuku looked out too, his expression thoughtful. He could feel something off, the faintest tug beneath his skin, like a pulse not his own. Yeah, he murmured almost to himself. Showtime. The building is massive, a gleaming glass dome reflecting the sunlight like something out of a sci-fi movie. When they step inside, it's even bigger, a whole landscape. Beneath one roof, mountains, floods, fire, wind. Waiting for them is a figure in a spacesuit-like costume. The space hero, 13. Where's All Might? Aizawa looked around, he was supposed to be here. 13 holds up 3 gloved fingers. He's busy, too much hero work. Aizawa nods. 13 turns back to the students. Welcome to the unforeseen simulation joint. 13's voice is muffled through her helmet, but full of warmth. Each section here mimics a disaster, a shipwreck, a landslide, a fire, a storm, etc. The class murmurs in awe. Bakugu smirks. Guess this'll be a breeze. Aizawa-sensei, and I want you to learn that your quirks can save lives, but they can also take them. 13 continues, tone softening. So, use them with care. Rescue work requires precision. Izuku listens closely, nodding. There's something in 13's words that hits him like she's not talking about hypotheticals, but warning them. They're just about to begin when Izuku suddenly winces, a sharp breath escaping him. His hand clamps to his temple. Bakugo catches it instantly, grabbing Izuku gently. Hey, what's wrong? Izuku's pulse is racing. He can feel it like 1,000 new beats overlapping his own. His voice comes out tight. There's something off. I can feel new pulses. Dozens. Maybe more. Bakugo straightens, his jaw tightening. What the hell does that mean? Before Izuku can answer, the air shimmers, twisting unnaturally. A low hum builds, vibrating through the floor. Then it tears open. A black-purple mist spirals into shape near the stairs, cold and heavy like a storm breaking. From it steps a man formed of shadow, a pale, gloved hand gripping his neck like it's the only thing holding him together. Now then, the voice drips calm malice. Where is he? The schedule said All Might would be here. The mist thickens and villains begin pouring out. Dozens of them. Some stumble, others prowl, all with one look in their eyes, hunger. Aizawa moves before anyone else can breathe. His scarf unfurls like a strike of silver lightning. 13 protect the students. Izuku's voice cracks. Sensei, there's too many. You can't. Aizawa glances back once, his expression unreadable beneath the goggles. But his voice is steady. Heroes need to have multiple tricks. Then he dives headfirst into chaos. He's a blur, scarf snapping, eyes flaring red under his lenses. One villain lunges, Aizawa sidesteps, erasure cutting through their power mid-swing. A kick sends another crashing into the railing. The scarf coils around a third's arm, flips them overhead, and slams them into the ground. Dust rises. He's outnumbered 20-1, but it doesn't matter. Every motion is sharp, precise, designed. Izuku stares, heart pounding. For a second, it's not just awe, it's fear. Not of Aizawa losing, but of how far a true hero will go to protect them. Bakugo clenches his fists beside him, teeth grit. The minute he's gonna get himself killed. Izuku's pulse thrums painfully in his ears, his instincts screaming that this is only the beginning. The class stands frozen for half a heartbeat. Then Bakugo's eyes narrow. He said All Might, they came for him. Todoroki's tone is sharp. Then this isn't random. Before 13 can order them back, Bakugo and Kirishima launch forward explosions and hardened arms tearing through the mist toward the warp villain. You're not defeating us that easily. Bakugo roars. But the Shadow Man tilts his head. Oh, I think I will. Izuku feels it before it happens, the pull of air, the sudden drop in pressure, his Quirk screaming at him. Kaken. Bakugo turns, eyes wide. What? Izuku doesn't think. He shoves him hard, trying to push him back toward 13. Move. The black fog bursts forward, expanding fast like ink spilling into water. Bakugo's hand shoots out, catching Izuku's wrist on instinct. Deku, what are you doing? The ground tilts. The mist curls around their legs, cold and suffocating. Izuku grabs Bakugo's arm, trying to pull him clear, but the suction drags harder. He's trying to scatter us. He's. And then Bakugo realizes that sick, hollow weight in his stomach. The panic isn't Izuku's this time. It's his. Deku, let go. I can't. The mist swallows them both. Kurogiri's voice echoes as everything fades to black. Now then, let's separate you properly. Heroes should learn what it feels like to be divided. The last thing Bakugo sees is Izuku's eyes wide, scared, but still trying to protect him. Then the world vanishes. Steam curled from the rim of a chipped porcelain cup, carrying the faint scent of black coffee. Sunlight spilled across the floor in golden stripes, cutting through the blinds in perfect symmetry. Toshinori Yagi, not All Might, not the symbol of peace, sat slouched on a couch that felt too soft for a man who'd spent his life standing. His eyes were half-lidded, exhaustion shadowing the sharp edges of his face. Every muscle in his body ached from patrol the night before, but his mind wouldn't quiet. The silence of the teacher's lounge was supposed to be peaceful. Instead, it felt wrong. He rubbed his temple, breath catching. Something a twist deep in his gut pulsed like an alarm. His hand shook slightly as he set the mug down. What is this feeling? It wasn't just fatigue. It was sharper, familiar, a heavy, suffocating dread that wrapped around his ribs. He stood abruptly, knocking the chair leg against the tile. Tashinori! The soft, lilting voice came from the corner. Nedzu sat at the table, tail curled neatly, a tablet in one paw and a half-eaten slice of toast in the other. His bright eyes gleamed with calm intelligence, but there was the faintest flicker of concern behind them. All Might turned, eyes hard but distant. Something's off, Principal. I can feel it. My students. Nedzu blinked. Your class is in 13th care today, yes? The USJ training exercise? That's exactly why I'm uneasy, Tashinori said, pacing. The sharpness of the old hero returned to his posture. I've learned to trust my instincts, Nedzu. When this kind of feeling hits, it never ends well. Nedzu set down his tablet. You've pushed yourself for weeks. Between patrols, classes, and the press, you haven't had a moment to rest. Your instincts might be reacting to exhaustion, not danger. Tashinori shook his head, the lines around his eyes deepening. No. This is different. It's like, he stopped, pressing a hand over his chest. Like someone's in danger and I can't see who. The sunlight flickered. Behind the clouds, dimming the room in a way that made the air feel suddenly colder. Nedzu's expression softened, but his tone remained measured. If something is wrong, 13 and Aizawa are both capable pros. They can handle an unexpected situation until reinforcements arrive. What you need right now, he tilted his head, is to be alive enough to help when it truly counts. Tashinori froze, jaw tightening. He knew Nedzu was right. And yet his pulse wouldn't slow. Rest for 1 hour, Nedzu continued gently. Then you can check in. The silence stretched. All Might's shoulders slowly sagged. He nodded once, voice low. 1 hour, he repeated. Nedzu smiled faintly, though there was a glint of understanding in his gaze as if he too could feel the faint tremor running through the air. Good. Heroes who ignore their limits don't stay heroes for long. Tashinori sank back into the chair, staring at his reflection in the cooling coffee. But his hands wouldn't stop trembling. Outside, the sun drifted behind a passing cloud, and somewhere far below, beyond the quiet campus grounds, a storm began to gather at USJ. Darkness. Then impetus. The air punched out of Bakugu's lungs before he even hit the ground. The world tilts, groans, he slams into broken concrete, his head ringing, dust filling his throat. He coughs hard, dragging himself up on one elbow. His vision swims for a second, but all he can think, the only word in his head, is Deku. No answer. His chest seized. He was right there. He was right to find G there. He stumbles to his feet. His ears are ringing, heart pounding too loud, like it's trying to escape his chest. He doesn't even register Kirishima landing nearby, just the way his hands won't stop shaking. That warp thing, he saw it reaching for them, saw Izuku push him back. And then nothing. Sheet. Bakugu slammed his fist into the wall. Sparks exploded from his hand, leaving a black scorch mark behind. His breathing was ragged, fast. He could still feel his heart pounding against his ribs, too loud, too erratic. The air tastes like smoke. His palms twitch, sparks flicker uncontrolled. Every nerve in his body is screaming. Bakugu! You okay, bro? Kirishima calls, steadying himself on a pile of rubble. Bakugu doesn't respond. His gaze is darting, frantic, searching every crack in the shattered walls, every shadow between the falling debris. He was right next to me, he mutters. His voice is hoarse, uneven. He pushed me and then... Kirishima frowns, confused. Midoriya? Bakugu grits his teeth, forcing the air through his lungs. Yeah, the minute Deku. He got pulled under with those villains. He stops. The thought physically hurts to finish. The fear that crawls up his spine feels cold and sick. It isn't the usual kind, not the fight adrenaline, not the burn of anger. It's emptiness. The idea of Izuku not being there, not arguing, not overanalyzing, not smiling like an idiot when things go right. It feels like the ground's gone out from under him. He squeezes his fists so hard his palms sting, explosions sparking unevenly between his fingers. No way. No DMN way he's gone. I'd know if he was. Kirishima steps closer. Hey man, slow down. We'll find him, okay? You're shaking. I'm fine. Bakugo snaps, but his voice cracks, betraying him. He drags a hand through his hair, skiing in shallow breaths that don't fill his chest. He hates this. He hates how weak it feels, how his chest feels like it's caving in from the inside out. He's not supposed to. His words collapse. His throat burns. Kirishima lays a hand on his arm, grounding him. Then let's move. We'll clear this zone, then go find him. He's probably already kicking butt, right? Bakugo swallows hard, nodding even though his vision's still unfocused, even though his heart's still hammering in terror. He forces his breathing to slow, sparks steadying in his hands. Yeah. He better be. Or I'll kill him myself. He tries to smirk, but it comes out hollow. The villains appear from behind the wreckage, snarling. Kirishima hardens beside him, ready. Bakugo ignites both palms, fire roaring to life. The explosions light the cracks in his gloves, trembling like his pulse. Let's finish this fast, he mutters. I'm not wasting another second away from him. And as the smoke and fire swallow the sound of his voice, Bakugo's chest still aches. A quiet, panicked rhythm beneath all the fury. A rhythm that whispers, I can't do this without you, Deku. Izuku hit the water hard. Cold exploded across his body, 1,000 needles driving into his skin all at once. His lungs seized, chest tightening painfully. He kicked upward, arms flailing, breaking the surface with a gasp that tore through his throat. The world spun, silver light rippling off endless water, fragments of sunken ships jutting out of the waves. He coughed, eyes stinging, trying to make sense of where he was. And then his mind clicked back into motion. Kaken. The thought hit him harder than the impact. His heart lurched, almost painful. Kaken, he yelled, voice breaking. The echo swallowed his words, bouncing back empty through the metal hollows. No answer. Panic clawed up his throat. He turned in every direction, searching the wreckage, scanning every shimmer of light on the water. He couldn't feel Katsuki's pulse, couldn't find that familiar rhythm he'd come to rely on like breathing. He'd felt it seconds before the warp swallowed them, the rapid, angry heartbeat that always flared when Katsuki got worked up. And now it was gone. No, Izuku muttered, his chest tightening further as the cold sank in. He was right beside me, he was. A splash broke his thoughts. Movement below. Dark shadows, 16 of them circling, converging. He didn't even have time to inhale before something darted toward him, slicing through the water like a spear. He froze, lungs burning. Hold on. A tongue whipped through the water, wrapping tightly around his waist. The sudden pull wrenched him upward just as a clawed hand tore through the space where his chest had been. He hit the surface again, gasping, and the next moment he was flung onto a half-sunken deck, coughing violently. Tsu Shinso, his words tumbled out between breaths. Call me Tsu, she said, crouched low beside him. Her wide eyes scanned the water's surface, her posture tense but calm. You okay, Midoriya? Izuku's breathing came fast and shallow. He pressed a trembling hand against his chest, trying to slow it down. Kaken, he's not here. I can't feel him. Shinso glanced at him, brows furrowed. Bakugo? He probably landed somewhere else when the warp scattered us. Izuku shook his head, eyes wide. He's impulsive. He'll go after the strongest villains he can find. If he's alone, Tsu's voice softened, cutting through his panic. Midoriya. Breathe. He's strong. He'll be fine. Her tone was calm but firm, grounding him. Izuku's chest heaved as he forced a shaky exhale, nodding once. Right, he whispered. Right. His hand curled into a fist, nails biting into his palm. He's not just reckless. He doesn't stop once he starts. I can't. He stopped himself. The fear still pressed heavy in his chest, but he swallowed it. They had to move. Katsuki would kill him if he wasted time worrying. Izuku took another breath and looked down at the water. The villains were circling, 16 separate pulses thudding in his head like drumbeats beneath the waves. They gathered intel, he said, more to steady himself than to inform. They knew we'd be here, but not what we could do. Shinsu's tone shifted from concern to focus. So they're fighting blind. Exactly. Izuku's breathing evened out. If they knew what quirks we had, they wouldn't put Tsu here. They'd throw her in the fire zone to neutralize her. Tsu blinked. Karo, so they over-prepared with numbers, but under-prepared in tactics? Yeah, Izuku said, wiping wet strands of hair from his face. They think they can crush us with numbers. But we can use that. He took the knife strapped to his waist and sliced a small cut on his fingertip. He crouched, tracing lines on the soaked metal deck with his fingertip. Blood followed in faint streaks, a habit he didn't even notice anymore. The droplets pulsed faintly, resonating with the heartbeats below. A rough map took shape, the outline of the ship, villains' positions glowing faintly in red. Shinso leaned closer. You can sense them through their pulses? Izuku nodded, eyes flicking over the map. Barely, but enough. He hesitated for a second, glancing toward the horizon, still searching for any flicker of Katsuki's presence. Izuku felt a slight pull, but right now he couldn't focus on that. His throat tightened again, but he forced himself to focus. Tsu, you stay high. Keep their attention split. Shinso, when I dive, bait them with your voice. Once one responds, take control. Make them fight each other. Tsuyu's brow furrowed. That's reckless, Midoriya. You could drown before you reach the second one. He gave a small, tired smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. So is everything we do here. For a moment, the three of them stood still. The only sound was the water lapping against metal, and the soft, rhythmic hum of 16 enemy pulses. Shinso sighed. You're insane. Izuku chuckled weakly. Probably. Izuku straightened, pushing soaked hair back from his forehead. His gaze swept over the horizon one last time, as if willing Katsuki to appear. Hang on, Kaken, he whispered under his breath. Just hang on. Blood shimmered faintly around his palms, swirling like red mist. And without another word, without looking back, Izuku Midoriya dove into the water. The air is electric with panic. Screams echo from the surrounding zones, the distant thunder of quirks clashing, explosions rattling the broken glass overhead. Shoji spreads his arms wide, his dupli arms unfolding like wings, each with an eye and ear attached, stretching across the upper walls and shattered windows. Counting, he murmurs under his breath, scanning every shadow, every voice. One by one, faces form in his mind. Mina, Uraraka, Shiro. Ida. He retracts his limbs. We're the only ones left here. Everyone else was scattered in the warp. 13 stands near the railing, their suit faintly sparking from earlier damage, voice trembling through the speaker. Then we don't have much time. We need to contact the school. Ida's fists clench. But the alarm's there jammed. If I can reach the entrance. 13 turns sharply. You're right. That's your job. Ida blinks, stunned. What? Me? But I can't just abandon you. 13's voice softens, but there's iron beneath it. You're not abandoning anyone. You're helping all of us. Bring the teachers. The ground hums faintly, a low rumble, followed by the sound of something tearing. A purple fog begins to spread again, the air warping and glittering like oil in water. Shiro curses under his breath. He's back, that warp guy. Shoji instantly spreads his arms again, forming a half-circle barrier with his webbed limbs. He's trying to block the exits. Mina's acid sizzles in her palms. We can't let him cut Ida off. Uraraka grabs Ida's wrist, voice tight. Go, Ida. We'll cover you. But you'll. She shoves him, smiling faintly despite the fear in her eyes. You said you wanted to be a hero, right? Then run like one. Shiro takes position on the left, flicking his wrists, tape firing out in snapping white arcs. I'll slow him down. Shoji, give me coverage. Shoji nods, muscles flexing as he throws two extended arms forward, webbing latching onto nearby debris. He yanks, pulling down a section of the collapsed walkway to block the mist's advance. Mina hurls acid in front of the fog, the liquid hissing as it hits the floor. Let's see him phase through that. For a brief moment, it works. Kurogiri's mist recoils, the fog slowing its creep toward them. But his voice slides through the air, soft and eerily polite. Persistent little students. You should be proud. I almost respect your teamwork. His mist begins to rise again, tendrils reaching over the barricade. Shoji's eyes widen. Go now. Ida hesitates one last second, looking back, heart hammering in his chest. Mina grins at him from behind her acid cloud. Don't make us regret this. He swallows hard. I won't. Then he sprints. Boots pounding against cracked tile, cape trailing behind him as he charges up the stairs past the broken glass and smoke. Kurogiri's mist lashes toward him, but Siro's tape catches the fog mid-spread, tangling it just long enough for Shoji to swing another chunk of debris into its path. Uraraka shouts, "Go!" and slams her hands to the floor. Weightless rocks and metal rising in the air, swirling between Ida and the warp gate like a storm of floating shrapnel. Ida bursts through the final set of doors. And just before the mist can follow, Shoji slams his hands down, his extra arms tightening the web barricade shut. Kurogiri's voice fades back into the fog, cool and composed. Very well. We'll deal with the rest of you first. The fog recedes. The silence that follows is heavy, only their ragged breathing filling the ruined dome. Uraraka leans against a wall, trembling but smiling weakly. He got out. Shoji's voice rumbles low but steady. Good. Now we make sure he wasn't the last one too. Mina wipes sweat and acid residue from her cheek. Then let's get ready. If that mist comes back, I'm melting every inch of it. Siro exhales shakily, giving her a small grin. Remind me never to make you mad. They laugh, short, nervous, but real, as the distant sound of battle echoes again from the center zone. 3 villains stepped into view, jagged weapons, sneering faces. Bakugo didn't even wait for them to talk. He moved. A flash of light, a concussive roar. His explosions tore through the air, sending 2 of them flying before they even blinked. The third lunged forward, only to get slammed into the ground by Bakugo's knee and a brutal left hook. The smell of smoke filled the air. Bakugo stood in the haze, chest heaving. He didn't even feel good about it. It wasn't enough. Nothing would be until he found him. Kirishima stared. Bro, you're really going all out? Bakugo didn't respond right away. His eyes darted to the horizon, to the faint glimmer of the artificial water dome in the distance. He could feel it somehow, like a thread tugging deep in his chest. He didn't know what the hell that feeling was, but he knew who it belonged to. Izuku. He's in the shipwreck zone. Kirishima blinked. What? How do you know? I just do. Bakugo barked, then cursed under his breath, hands flexing. He's a shitty swimmer. That BSTRD can barely stay afloat. And he gets cold so easily. He's gonna. He cut himself off, jaw tightening. The thought hit too hard, too real. If something happened. His breath came shorter. It wasn't like him. He could fight anyone, blow through anything. But this creeping panic under his ribs, it wasn't anger. It was fear, sharp and suffocating. Kirishima stepped forward, concern edging his voice. Hey, Bakugo, we'll find him, man. You're not alone here. Bakugo didn't respond. He just stared out toward the distant shimmer of the shipwreck zone, the only place his gut wouldn't stop screaming about. His palms were still sparking, but the light flickered unevenly, like it was feeding off the frantic rhythm of his heartbeat. Just hold on, then, he muttered under his breath, voice cracking at the edges. I'll find you, Deku. You hear me? A gust of wind swept the dust aside. His crimson eyes glowed faintly in the smoke, narrowed and fierce. Then he blasted forward, explosions cracking the ground behind him, determined to carve a path through every villain in his way. He'd tear the whole place apart if he had to. Because if Izuku was gone, Bakugo didn't know what the hell he'd do. The dome trembled from distant explosions. The water churned with red light. Izuku's blood tendrils coiled and lashed through the waves, carving through the water with desperate precision. Each strike cost him more color in his face. His lips were pale, his breaths shallow, but he kept going. 3 villains went down. 4 more surrounded him. His control was slipping. His vision blurred. His blood shimmered in faint, broken ribbons weak from overuse. In it, he staggered, pressing a hand to his side. Too much. Too much at once. Midoriya. Tsuyu's voice echoed from the wrecked mast above. They're coming from below. Izuku barely turned before a villain surged from the depths, fist ped back. And the entire deck exploded. A shockwave of light and smoke tore through the water, scattering debris in every direction. Metal groaned, the ship's hull split down the middle, and the villain went flying. When the haze cleared, Katsuki Bakugo stood at the edge of the wreck, smoke curling from his palms and eyes blazing with something deeper than fury. You, he hissed, voice shaking, absolute idiot. Izuku blinked, dazed. Kaken? Bakugo jumped down onto the splintered deck, boots splashing through shallow water. He grabbed Izuku's shirt and yanked him forward. What the hell were you thinking? You're freezing, you're bleeding, and you're... His voice cracked. He looked away for half a second, jaw tight. You're lucky I even found you. Izuku stared not at the anger, but the tremor in Bakugo's hands. You came looking for me? Of course I did, dumbass. Bakugo snapped, but it came out too loud, too raw. You think I'd just let you? He stopped himself again, teeth clenched. His next words dropped quieter, shaking. You can't just disappear like that. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. Just the sound of waves hitting metal and the faint thump of Izuku's slowing pulse. Izuku tried to smile weakly. Guess we're even now. You saved me this time. Bakugo exhaled hard through his nose, eyes burning with something close to panic. Shut up. Just don't do that again. Before Izuku could reply, the ship groaned beneath them. Another villain lunged from behind, shouting. Bakugo moved before thought, spinning and blasting him straight into the water. Izuku raised his hand instinctively, blood circling in thin red lines at his fingertips. More incoming. I see them. Bakugo stepped forward, explosions lighting around his arms like a storm. You stay behind me this time, got it? Izuku hesitated, a faint, wry smile ghosting across his lips. Since when do you protect people? Bakugo glared over his shoulder, not denying it. Since you won't protect yourself. Izuku's breath caught the weight in Bakugo's words, hitting deeper than the situation around them. He didn't have time to respond. More villains were charging. The ship was breaking. But somehow standing beside Bakugo, he didn't feel scared anymore. The two of them moved in sync, explosions and blood surging through the air, steam rising in flashes of light and red mist. Bakugo's blasts lit the battlefield while Izuku's blood threads curved and wove through the chaos, disarming and redirecting. And in that instant, under the flashing lights and the roar of destruction, Bakugo realized what that hollow ache in his chest had been all along. He didn't just hate losing to Izuku. He was terrified of losing him. The water had gone still. Steam curled off the broken ship, drifting over the surface like a ghost. Tsuyu sat on a floating slab of metal, her costume torn slightly. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed, watching the last few villains float unconscious nearby. Shinso crouched beside her, pale but steady, his hair dripping water into his eyes. Izuku lay slumped against a broken railing, breathing in short, uneven bursts. His blood quirk shimmered faintly around his fingertips, fading as his pulse slowed. Katsuki stood a few feet away, staring at the wreckage, his hands still trembling from the explosions he'd fired. No one spoke for a long time. Only the quiet slap of waves against metal filled the silence. Tsuyu broke it first. We actually did it. Her voice was soft, small, disbelieving. Izuku gave a weak laugh, wiping water from his face. Barely. Shinso huffed, pushing soaked hair back. You say that like we didn't almost drown or die 5 times. But there was no bite to it, just exhaustion. Bakugo exhaled sharply through his nose, pacing once before stopping to glare at the sky. You idiots were sitting ducks down here. His tone was harsh, but his voice cracked halfway through the sentence. He didn't look at them. Tsuyu tilted her head. You came to find us, though? Bakugo's hands clenched at his sides. Because Deku can't go 5 minutes without getting himself killed. Izuku opened his mouth, then stopped. He could see the edge of panic in Katsuki's movements, the way his eyes darted to the horizon like he was still searching for something. "Kaken," he said quietly. "You saved me." Bakugo froze. His jaw tightened. "Shut up." But his voice was softer this time, almost shaky. Shinso looked between them, brow furrowing slightly. "You two got some weird codependency thing going on, huh?" Katsuki shot him a glare, but it was half-hearted. "Mind your demon business, brainwash." "Just an observation," Shinso muttered, looking away. Izuku managed a faint smile, the tension easing just a little. "You did good, all of you." He glanced at Shinso and Tsu. "That was quick thinking, especially when we split." Tsuyu nodded. "We just followed your plan." Then, softly, "You scared us, Midoriya. When you went under." Izuku lowered his gaze. "Yeah. I scared myself too." There was another pause, quiet, heavy, but not hopeless. The kind of silence that comes after surviving something you shouldn't have. Katsuki finally turned toward them again, his expression unreadable. "You three stay here and catch your breath. I'm going back." Izuku blinked. "Back? Where?" "Shitty hair," Bakugo said, slinging his arm over his shoulder like he was steadying himself through sheer will. "We got separated after the initial blast. He took a hit and needed to rest for a minute. I'm not leaving him." Izuku's eyes softened. "You're both still in fighting shape?" "Barely," Katsuki muttered, lighting a small pop of sparks in his palm. "But I've still got fight left in me. More than those beasters will when I find them." Shinso raised an eyebrow. "You sure about going alone?" Bakugo hesitated. Just for a moment. Then his eyes flicked toward Izuku, that same look from before, a flash of something protective and desperate all at once. "I'll be fine," he said. "You just don't die while I'm gone, got it?" Izuku gave him a small, tired grin. "Deal." Bakugo snorted, shaking his head before turning away. "Dumb nerd." He blasted off, light and smoke trailing behind him, but not before Izuku caught the faint tremor in his hands again. When the smoke faded, Tsuyu exhaled, her voice barely above a whisper. "He really cares about you, you know?" Izuku looked down at the blood still drying on his skin, a faint smile ghosting his lips. "Yeah," he murmured. "I know." Shinso let out a quiet sigh, dropping down to sit beside them. "We should regroup. If he's going back, we'll need to be ready in case he needs backup." Izuku nodded slowly. "Yeah. Let's rest, then move." The three of them sat in silence, the echo of battle fading into the distance, smoke curling over the ruined dome, the air thick with salt, fear, and the faintest hint of hope. Izuku sat hunched forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the rippling water. His reflection was broken into fragments, trembling, distorted pieces that didn't quite fit together. Tsuyu wrung out the ends of her sleeves, her movements slow, deliberate. "We should move, Karo," she said quietly. "All Might should be here soon. If we meet with the others near the plaza, we'll be safer." Shinso nodded, voice low. "Agreed. Staying here's just asking for trouble. If villains regroup, this zone'll turn into a trap." Izuku didn't respond. His fingers twitched against his thigh, tapping in uneven rhythms, counting something only he understood. "Midoriya?" Tsuyu tilted her head, eyes wide. "You okay?" He blinked once, twice like he'd just come back from somewhere far away. "Aizawa-sensei." Shinso frowned. "What about him?" "He's still fighting." The words came out thin, uneven. "He's been fighting alone since the start." Tsuyu's throat bobbed. "You don't know that. He's strong, Karo. Stronger than most pro-heroes I've seen." "I felt it," Izuku interrupted, his voice rising slightly before cracking. He pressed a hand to his chest, right over his heart. "When he fought, I could feel the pulses. Every hit, every strain in his rhythm. It's slowing down." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the distant echoes of battle metal clashing, concrete breaking somewhere in the distance. Izuku stood up abruptly, water dripping off him, hands trembling. "I can't just sit here while he's—" "Midoriya," Shinso said sharply. "You move now, and you're walking straight into an ambush. The mist guy's still out there, and we don't know where the warp zones lead." "I know that." Izuku's voice cracked again, too raw to hide. But sensei, he's out there risking everything for us. If he falls, we... He stopped, breath catching hard. His words tangled into silence. Tsuyu's eyes softened. She hopped closer and put a hand on his shoulder, small, but grounding. You care about him a lot? Izuku swallowed. He believed in me when everyone else thought I didn't belong here. His voice faltered, trembling. He's the first person who told me I could be a hero with the quirk I have. I can't just let him. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Shinso sighed, dragging a hand down his face. You're really gonna do something stupid, huh? Izuku glanced at him, guilt flickering in his eyes. I just need to see if he's okay. Just a quick look. Fine. Shinso stood, squaring his shoulders. But you're not going alone. Izuku froze. What? No, you and Tsu should. Save it, Shinso cut in. Think I'm letting you wander off mid-battle when your nerves are shot? Tsuyu nodded, straightening beside them. And I owe you one for earlier, Midoriya. You trusted me with the plan. Now I'll trust you with this. Izuku stared at them, at the quiet determination in Shinsu's tired eyes, at the calm steadiness in Tsu's. The kind of loyalty that didn't need big words. He opened his mouth but nothing came out. His throat burned too tight for it. Okay, he whispered finally. Okay. Shinso adjusted his capture scarf, giving a low grunt. Then let's move before I change my mind. Tsuyu crouched low, her movements smooth and silent as she leapt from one slab of debris to the next. We'll take the shoreline, Karo. It's quieter, villains won't expect movement from this side. Izuku followed, feet unsteady at first, but growing firmer with each step. The noise of distant combat grew louder, like thunder rolling closer. Shinso caught up beside him, voice dry but not unkind. You know, you've got a dangerous heart, Midoriya. Makes people want to follow you, even into stupid situations like this. Izuku gave a small, fragile smile. Guess I'm lucky to have people who'd come anyway. Tsuyu glanced back at him. You're not lucky, Karo. You earned it. And with that, the three of them pressed forward, into the smoke and echoes, toward the center of the storm, where Aizawa was still fighting and where, deep down, Izuku feared what he might find. The air is heavy with dust and the smell of dirt. Crumbled earth walls rise around them like a labyrinth, a man-made canyon of rock and shadow. Todoroki steps forward slowly, his breath visible in the chill spreading around his feet. The moment the first villain lunges out of the mist, a flash freeze bursts across the ground, a jagged wave of ice racing forward, swallowing rubble, boots, and panicked screams in a frozen instant. 7 villains, completely immobilized. Hagekure's voice trembles faintly beside him, disembodied, light. That's kind of terrifying, Todoroki. He doesn't respond right away. His breath fogs as he stares down at the frozen statues, jaw tight. They're real villains. They came here to kill us. His tone doesn't waver, but his eyes are cold, distant, something sharp flickering behind the calm. Invisible or not, Hagekure can feel the chill creeping into her spine. Still, you didn't have to freeze them solid. I held back, he says quietly. If I hadn't, they'd be dead. He walks past her, boots crunching on frost. Let's regroup with the others. The ground shakes with the echo of collapsing rock. The air smells of gunpowder and ozone. Momo crouches behind a half-destroyed boulder, her hands glowing faintly as she materializes a large metal shield. Kaminari, how long can you keep that current steady? Denki grits his teeth, electricity sparking along his arms, a few wild arcs snapping off nearby stone. Long as I don't fry my brain, we're good. Jairu taps her ear jack into the ground, eyes narrowed. They're circling us, 5 on the left, 2 behind. They're coordinating. Then let's ruin their rhythm, Momo says sharply. She tosses the metal shield to Jairu. Plant your jacks through the rim. Kaminari, charge it. Denki blinks. Wait, what if I short it? Then aim away from us. Momo interrupts, already forming another piece of gear, a stun baton this time. Jairu smirks, plugging her jacks into the shield's rim. You heard her, human Tesla coil. Denki grins, charging his palms, electrify. The moment the villains round the boulder, A blinding surge of blue lightning explodes outward from the shield. The shockwave throws half of them off their feet, smoke trailing off their armor. Momo slams her baton into the nearest enemy's leg, Gyro whips around to finish the hit, and Denki collapses backward, laughing breathlessly. See? Controlled. Totally fine. He blinks. Mostly fine. Momo sighs but smiles despite herself. You're improving. Heat rolls like a living thing. Flames roar from twisted metal, painting the ground in orange and red. Ojiro wipes soot from his cheek, his white training suit streaked with ash. His tail lashes behind him tense, precise. He can't see them, but he can hear them footsteps through fire, crackling embers snapping under boots. Come on, he mutters, muscles tightening. A figure bursts through the smoke swinging a metal pipe and Ojiro moves. A pivot, a kick, tail sweeping low, catching the villain's ankle and slamming him into the ground. Another comes from behind. Ojiro spins, his tail coiling like a whip, striking the weapon from the villain's hand before elbowing him in the chest. His breathing is steady, his stance controlled fluid. Every motion refined through years of martial arts, every move economical. The fire creeps closer, heat searing his back. He looks toward the edge of the zone, the orange glow reflecting in his eyes. I need to find the others fast. He takes one last breath, then sprints through the smoke. Wind howls like a beast strong enough to tear at their clothes and sting their skin. Dust swirls, visibility near zero. Koda kneels low, one hand cupped around his mouth. His eyes are wide, frightened but determined. He leans close to a small vent in the ground. Please, help us, he whispers, voice barely audible under the storm. Moments later, a rustling sound. Then 100 tiny shapes erupt from the rubble, insects, birds, even a few rodents, drawn by his plea. Tokoyami stands beside him, cape snapping violently in the wind, dark shadows straining against the gusts. You're doing well, Koda. Just hold steady. I'm trying, Koda says, voice shaking. They're everywhere. Dark shadow lashes out, striking a villain who tries to crawl closer. They're using the storm as cover, Tokoyami growls. Cowards. Then let's use it too, Koda says, suddenly surprising even himself. He closes his eyes, whispering faster, a soft hum rolling into the gale. Above them, a swarm of birds forms a vortex, moving with the wind instead of against it, cutting visibility for their enemies. Dark shadow expands, seizing the moment, wings spreading wide as it cuts through the blinded villains like a living blade. Tokoyami's eyes flash. Excellent coordination. Koda blushes faintly, smiling behind his hands. Thank you. They reach the edge of the plaza by moving through the wrecked hulls, crushed pillars, and shattered glass crunching under their boots. The world smells of iron and ozone. Every sound feels too loud, every heartbeat like thunder in Izuku's ears. He stops just short of the open floor, one arm outstretched to hold Shinso and see back. His breath catches. There, he whispers. Aizawa is fighting alone. In the middle of the open plaza, surrounded by at least 20 villains, he moves like shadow and lightning, scarf flashing, boots skidding across broken tile. His hair sticks to his face, blood running down his temple, but his eyes burn bright, red and sharp. He moves with purpose. Every flick of his scarf disables one villain, then another, but it's taking everything out of him. Izuku can see it, the trembling in his knees, the slight drag of exhaustion in each breath. He's holding them all off, but he's losing ground. And behind the chaos, on the staircase overlooking the scene, stands Shigaraki Tamura. Fingers twitching. Eyes like fractured glass. Watching. Waiting. Izuku's pulse spikes. Sensei, his voice cracks. He's not going to last. Shinso clenches his fists. He's buying time for us. For All Might. I know, Izuku swallows hard, voice barely above a whisper. But if he keeps fighting like that, he's going to break. Then the air distorts. A purple mist spills open on the far side of the plaza. Kurogyri. He drifts forward, voice calm and deliberate. Now then, students. You really shouldn't be here. Shinso tenses, eyes narrowing. He's hurting us, he wants to separate us again. Izuku's chest seizes. No. Not this time. He steps forward instinctively, but Shinso grabs his wrist. Midoriya. Wait. The words barely reach him. The static in his head drowns everything else out. Sensei's pulse is slowing. He can feel it like a dimming heartbeat echoing through his own veins. Aizawa takes down another villain, but his scarf catches on broken debris. One of the remaining enemies slams into him from behind. His goggles crack. Shigaraki steps forward at last, his smile thin and jagged. Eraserhead. You've done well. His hand twitches. Dust falls from his fingertips like snow. But this is where your trick ends. The Nomu steps out from the shadows, towering, monstrous, muscle and sinew and exposed brain. The air itself seems to warp around it. Izuku can't breathe. He takes a step forward, shaking. No. Shinso curses under his breath. We need to move now. But Izuku doesn't move away. He moves toward. His hand trembles at his side, blood forming faint threads that trail after him. He's alone. He can't fight that thing alone. Tsuyu jumps in front of him, blocking his path, her webbed hand pressing to his chest. Midoriya, Karo, listen. If you run in there, you'll die. He looks at her, really looks at her, eyes wide, glassy, raw. If that thing kills him, I won't forgive myself. The desperation in his voice hits both of them like a punch. Tsuyu's eyes flicker. Shinso looks away for half a second, then exhales sharply. Fine, Shinso mutters. We go in together. But we keep distance, no heroics. Izuku nods, though the word heroics feels hollow in his chest. This isn't about glory. It's about fear and love and the bone-deep instinct to protect. They break cover, moving fast and low. Shinso's eyes are locked on Kurogiri, Tsuyu ready to leap at any sign of attack. Izuku runs ahead, vision tunneling in on one thing. Aizawa, bloodied, one arm broken, still standing, still fighting. Sensei! Izuku yells. Aizawa barely turns his head, and in that half-second of distraction, the Nomu slams him into the ground. The sound echoes through the entire dome, a wet, heavy crack. The Nomu's fist came down again. Aizawa's head struck the concrete. Blood bloomed beneath him. Izuku's mind split, part of him here, part of him somewhere else entirely. He remembered Aizawa's voice that first week at UA, tired but patient. If you want to be a hero, learn to think before you act. Izuku had been shaking then, fumbling through introductions. Aizawa hadn't smiled, but he'd listened. Really listened. Another hit. The sound rattled through the metal framework of the plaza, through Izuku's chest. He remembered sitting in the infirmary after the Quirk apprehension test, head down, whispering apologies for almost fainting. Aizawa had just sighed, his scarf slung around his shoulders. You're too hard on yourself, problem child. You pass because you care. Don't waste that. Izuku's throat burned. The Nomu's hand lifted again, Aizawa's hair matted with blood, goggles shattered, the red in his eyes fading. Another memory surged, quiet, small. A night study session after class, when Izuku had stayed behind to ask about patrol patterns. Aizawa had been half asleep at his desk, coffee untouched. When Izuku dropped his pen and muttered, "Sorry for bothering you," Aizawa had murmured, barely awake, "You're not a bother, kid. Just, don't forget to rest." Izuku's heart twisted. His knees trembled. The Nomu growled low and animal, a sound that felt like it could tear the air apart. Izuku's breath broke. The blood from his palms thickened, trembling in midair. "Stop," he whispered, the word cracking, splintering. "Stop it." He could feel Aizawa's pulse, now faint, fading, like a whisper slipping through his fingers. Tsuyu shouted something behind him. Shinso's voice cracked through the chaos, but Izuku couldn't hear them. He only heard the echoes of every word Aizawa had ever given him. The quiet encouragements, the lessons hidden behind sarcasm. The warmth disguised as indifference. The man who never said, "I'm proud of you," but looked at him like he was worth something anyway. The man who had been more than a teacher. The closest thing Izuku had to a father. The Nomu slammed its hand down again. Something inside Izuku snapped. The air around him shifted, pressure rising, blood trembling violently. His veins glowed faintly beneath his skin, the threads coiling tighter like they were alive. He screamed a sound ripped straight from his soul. Stop! Every drop of blood he'd spilled responded at once, surging through the air like red lightning. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't planned. It was raw, desperate, furious. The threads lashed out, wrapping around pillars, slicing through debris, spiraling toward the Nomu with enough force to make the air vibrate. Shinso cursed under his breath. Midoriya! But Izuku didn't hear. His focus was a single heartbeat weak, fading, and all that mattered. He was no longer thinking like a student. He was thinking like a child trying to save his father. Izuku moves. He doesn't think. He doesn't plan. He just runs. Ida's boots thundered against the ground. Each breath tore through his chest like glass, steam curling from his lips in the cold air. His engines screamed with effort, propelling him faster, faster, trees whipping by in a blur of green and gray. Please. Someone, he gasped between breaths. His mind replayed the chaos behind him, the screams, the villains, Aizawa-sensei's sharp voice, 13th's warning. Every step felt heavier with guilt. I'm leaving them behind. He pushed harder. No, I'm not abandoning them. I'm going to save them. The road bent and suddenly, a figure appeared at the turn ahead. Broad-shouldered. The sunlight gleamed off his golden hair like fire. Ida skidded to a halt so fast his engines sputtered out. All Might. All Might stood there, dressed casually in a long coat, his eyes shadowed but his expression tense, unreadable. Young Ida? The words carried a weight of both relief and alarm. He had been heading toward these himself, that uneasy pull in his chest refusing to quiet no matter how many times Principal Nedzu insisted he rest. And now seeing Ida's trembling frame, the dirt on his uniform, the wild panic in his eyes, All Might knew. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. All Might. Ida's voice cracked as he stumbled closer, clutching his chest. There's been an attack. Villains, dozens of them. They warped into USJ during training Sensei Aizawa's Fighting 13. All Might's face darkened, the line of his jaw tightening like stone. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to still around him. How many? His tone dropped, the weight of a storm. Ida swallowed hard. Too many to count. And there's something else there, sir. A monster. That's enough, young Ida. The words were firm, but kind, steady in the chaos. He put a hand on Ida's shoulder, the grip both grounding and unshakable. His blue eyes glowed faintly with power reined in tight. You've done well to get this far. But Ida's voice broke. I should go back, they need help. All Might shook his head, calm but commanding. No. You've done exactly what a hero should do, think, act, and ensure help arrives. He straightened, the coat fluttering as wind swept through the trees. Now it's my turn. Ida froze, watching as All Might's expression shifted not to the smiling symbol of peace, but to something fierce, burning, protective. All Might, he whispered, voice trembling. Please save them. All Might smiled, then small, tired, but full of determination. Of course, my boy. That's what I'm here for. He turned toward the horizon where the faint glimmer of the USJ dome shimmered through the mist. Go, he barked, voice echoing through the woods. Return to UA. Tell Nedzu everything. I'll take care of what's inside. Ida hesitated only a second, then saluted, bowing his head low. Yes, sir. Engines roared again as he launched forward, speeding down the opposite path. All Might stood there a moment longer, the air stilling around him. He could feel it now, the wrongness, the chaos, the fear bleeding from that place. He clenched his fists. Hold on, Eraserhead. Midoriya. His eyes hardened, glowing faintly blue beneath the shadow of his hair. You're not alone. Then, with a thunderous boom, All Might shot forward, the trees bending in his wake as he broke the sound barrier, racing toward you. Stop it! The ground cracked beneath his feet. Threads of crimson burst outward, hundreds of them writhing like veins come alive. They dug into the floor, the walls, the air itself, humming with violent energy. The Nomu turned roaring as the first lash of blood struck, slamming into its chest with the force of an explosion. A shockwave shattered the nearby tiles. Izuku's breath came fast, shallow. His blood threads thickened, weaving themselves into jagged tendrils that wrapped around the Nomu's arms, legs, throat. Steam hissed from his skin, veins glowing faintly beneath. Each pulse of his heart sent a tremor through the air, the red cords vibrating like living wire. The Nomu pulled the threads tightened. It was like trying to bind a hurricane. Izuku grit his teeth, his knees trembling. The Nomu roared again, its raw strength tearing through one of the bindings, the recoil slamming Izuku back into a pillar. Blood spattered the ground. His vision blurred. He forced himself up, panting, clutching at his ribs. Shigaraki's voice drifted through the haze, slow, curious. So you're not completely useless. He stepped closer, fingers flexing. You're bleeding faster than you're thinking, though. That's not strategy anymore, little hero. That's panic. Izuku didn't answer. He lunged forward, dragging the blood with him. The bindings reformed, wrapping the Nomu's torso, bursting into spikes that pierced deep into its shoulder. The creature staggered but didn't fall. Its wounds healed instantly, tissue knitting back together with a wet sound. Izuku's heart pounded harder. Regeneration. His eyes darted everywhere, pulse tracking, movement calculating, but his breathing was ragged, his body screaming. Every thread he pulled came at a cost. He could feel it, his blood thinned, his muscles shaking from strain. His head was light, dizzy. Still he refused to stop. Aizawa's pulse was weak. Still there. That was enough. The Nomu broke free again, swinging a massive arm down. Izuku barely rolled aside. The impact caved the ground in, shards of concrete flying. He retaliated instantly, blood erupting in a red arc that slashed the Nomu's face and shattered its right eye. It didn't slow. The Nomu caught him mid-dash, a hand closing around his torso like a vice. Ribs cracked. The pressure was unbearable. Izuku screamed, blood spilling from his mouth, and every drop around him exploded outward in a violent surge. The creature staggered backward, releasing him just long enough for Izuku to collapse onto his knees. He pushed himself up again, trembling, barely able to see. His hands shook uncontrollably, red energy flickering around his arms like sparks. Shigaraki's laugh was quiet, rasping. You really think you're a hero, don't you? Izuku lifted his head, green eyes blazing through tears and blood. No. Shigaraki paused, smirking. No. I'm just, Izuku's voice cracked, raw. Someone who can't watch people die. Shigaraki tilted his head. How cute. He snapped his fingers. The Nomu lunged again, faster than before. Izuku raised his arms, summoning one last burst of crimson power, but his body couldn't keep up. His knees gave out, the threads faltered midair. The Nomu's hand swung down. And Shigaraki stepped forward, his palm open, 5 fingers reaching for Izuku's face. Goodbye, little hero. Izuku stared up, exhausted, helpless. A sonic boom split the air. Wind howled. The world itself seemed to quake. Shigaraki's hand froze inches from Izuku's cheek, then was ripped away by a golden blur that smashed into the Nomu with earth-shattering force. Not so fast, villain. The floor ruptured. Air pressure blasted outward, tossing debris like paper. Izuku blinked through the haze, coughing, his ears ringing. There, in the middle of the destruction, stood All Might, cloak billowing, muscles gleaming under fractured light, his eyes blazing like twin suns. He glanced back once and for just a moment, smiled at Izuku. You did well, young Midoriya. Rest now. I'll take it from here. The air cracked like thunder every time All Might's fists collided with the Nomu. The shockwaves shattered what was left of the plaza, dust and glass swirling like a storm. Izuku could barely stay standing. His knees wobbled, lungs heaving, blood dripping down his arm in thin, trembling threads. Every beat of his heart felt like it took something out of him. All Might, his voice trembled. He's slowing down. Shinso grabbed his arm. Midoriya, stop. You're already on the edge. But Izuku barely heard him. His eyes were locked on All Might, the symbol of peace being pressed into the ground, the Nomu's monstrous hand gripping his throat. No! Izuku's chest tightened. No, he can't lose. Not him. He stumbled forward dizzy, shaking, but sheer instinct kept him moving. The blood in his veins burned, thrumming to life as if answering his panic. Midoriya, wait. Tsuyu's voice was distant, fading behind the pounding in his ears. Then the sound that shattered everything. All Might's pained grunt. The Nomu's growl as it raised its arm, ready to crush him. Izuku's vision tunneled. His hand shot forward, crimson light sparking from his fingertips as blood whipped out like a blade slashing clean through the Nomu's arm. The monster screamed. All Might tore himself free, gasping, eyes wide in shock. Young Midoriya. Izuku dropped to one knee, chest heaving. His head spun, vision flickering white and black. I had to. Then his legs gave out. The world tilted. Deku! The voice hit him like a jolt through the haze, familiar, fiery, desperate. Before his body hit the ground, strong arms caught him from behind. The smell of sweat, smoke, and ash filled his nose. Katsuki, Kirishima, and Todoroki were right behind him, the sound of ice bursting against concrete, the ground hardening under Kirishima's feet as he blocked incoming debris. Kakakin, Izuku whispered weakly. His voice barely audible. Shut up, you demon nerd, Katsuki said, but his voice was shaking. You're burning yourself out, what the hell were you thinking? Katsuki saw how bloodied he was, could feel how his torso was, and Izuku was badly hurt. He frowned as his hands shook. Izuku tried to smile, faint, trembling. Help it. All Might. Katsuki's eyes widened, panic and anger twisting together in his chest. You always, he stopped himself, teeth gritting. His hand curled behind Izuku's neck to keep him upright. You always think about everyone but yourself, you idiot. Behind them, Todoroki's ice arced high, blocking a swipe from the Nomu's good arm. We can't stay here, he snapped. All Might need space to finish this. Kirishima nodded, his voice tense but steady. Bakugo, I got your back, let's move him. But Katsuki didn't move. Not yet. He looked down at Izuku, pale, trembling, barely conscious, and something inside him cracked. You don't get to die here, he muttered, voice breaking despite himself. You hear me? You don't get to leave me. Izuku's lips parted, breath shallow. Kakin. His eyes fluttered closed. Katsuki's heart dropped. No, hey. Hey, Deku, open your demon eyes. But before he could panic further, All Might's voice boomed across the plaza, raw, defiant, and impossibly strong again. Go beyond. Plus ultra. The explosion of wind and light blasted across the battlefield. The Nomu was flung through the ceiling, gone in an instant. Katsuki shielded Izuku's body with his own, crouching low as Todoroki's ice barrier sealed them in from the blast. The moment the roar faded, silence fell, broken only by All Might's labored breaths and the ringing in their ears. Kirishima exhaled shakily, rubbing sweat from his brow. He did it. Todoroki's voice was quiet, awe barely hidden. He really is the symbol of peace. Katsuki didn't answer. He was staring at Izuku, pale, his head resting against Katsuki's shoulder, his breathing faint but steady. Finally he whispered, voice hoarse, almost breaking. You scared the hell out of me, nerd. Kirishima turned, worry in his tone. He's alive, right? Katsuki nodded stiffly. Yeah. Just passed out. He brushed a hand through Izuku's blood-matted curls. His hairstyle fell out somewhere in the commotion. Quieter now. He'll be fine. I'll make sure of it. When the pro-heroes arrived minutes later, Katsuki was still kneeling there, Izuku in his arms, refusing to let anyone else touch him until he knew he was safe. And even as the medics rushed in, Katsuki kept one hand on Izuku's shoulder, his thumb tracing faint, unconscious circles against his uniform. The sirens are too loud. They won't stop screaming. Katsuki sits in the back of the ambulance, knees spread wide, fists clenched tight on his thighs. His palms sting, blistered from the explosions he didn't even remember throwing. His ears ring with static, with the ghost of that last impact, the way the Noma hit the ground, the way All Might didn't fall, and the way Deku did. He looks down. Izuku's lying on the stretcher, head tilted to the side, oxygen mask covering his mouth. His freckles are smudged with dirt and dried blood. There's an 4 in his arm, and his pulse monitor beeps slow, steady, but too soft. Too soft. Keep pressure on his arm, he's lost a lot of blood, one of the medics says. Katsuki's jaw tightens. I'm keeping pressure, DMN it. His voice cracks halfway through, and he hates it. Hates the way it sounds. The medic gives him a look sympathy, maybe pity, and Katsuki almost explodes right there. He doesn't want their pity. He just wants Deku to open his DMN eyes. Because he hasn't. Not since the fight ended. Hey, Katsuki mutters, leaning closer, his hand hovering over Izuku's shoulder. You're fine, right? You always are. Always have to be the big DMN hero, huh? No answer. Katsuki swallows hard, the air burning down his throat. His chest feels tight, like something's crawling under his ribs. You stupid, reckless idiot. He glances out the back window, the ruined skyline blurring past. Todoroki and Kirishima are following in another car with Aizawa. Everyone's safe now. Everyone except. Katsuki looks back at Izuku. His fingers twitch, barely noticeable. For a second, Katsuki forgets how to breathe. Hey, Deku, you hearing me? Move your hand again, DMN it. Another twitch. Barely there. But it's enough to tear something open in Katsuki's chest. He exhales shakily, wiping at his face with the back of his hand before anyone can see. Yeah, that's it. You're not dying on me, you hear me? The medic across from him mutters something about stabilizing vitals, but Katsuki doesn't care. All he can think about is the sound of Izuku's body hitting the ground. The way his head lolled against Katsuki's shoulder when he caught him. The way his blood felt warm and sticky on his hands. He's seen injuries. The bruises they get from training with Aizawa-sensei, sometimes the soreness of his shoulders when he pushed too hard. But never his. Not like this. The ambulance hits a bump, and Izuku's head shifts slightly. Katsuki moves fast, bracing his hand behind his neck before it can jolt too hard. Easy, he mutters under his breath, voice softer now. You're okay. I got you. The words come out before he can stop them. Before he can bury them in something loud and angry. He sits there like that the rest of the ride, his hands still behind Izuku's neck, thumb tracing small, steady circles against his skin. Every now and then he checks the monitor, like he's daring it to stay steady. When they finally reach the hospital, the medics rush to open the doors. One of them tries to move Katsuki aside. Kid, we need space. Katsuki glares, his voice a snarl. I'm not going anywhere until he's inside that room. They don't argue. They just let him follow until the doors slam shut behind them and the white coats take over. He stands there in the hallway, smoke still faintly curling from his palms, staring at the little glass window in the door. He can see them hooking Izuku up to machines, wrapping his arm, putting that demon mask back on. He can't hear anything. Just sees the lights flash red, blue, white. For the first time in a long time, Katsuki Bakugo feels completely powerless. And the thought rips through his chest like an explosion. He presses a hand against the wall, knuckles trembling. Deku, he whispers, just once. Not angry. Not yelling. Just draw. Don't you dare leave me. The monitor inside the room keeps beeping. Slow. Steady. The room's too quiet. Too white. Too still. The only thing that makes it feel real is the sound of the monitor, that steady, mechanical heartbeat that keeps him from losing his mind. Katsuki sits slumped in the chair beside Izuku's bed. His hoodie's half off his shoulder, his hands hang loose between his knees. His head's bowed, eyes shadowed, exhaustion pulling at every inch of him. He hasn't moved in hours. Hasn't spoken either. Because he's scared the second he does, the sound might stop. Izuku lies still, pale under the hospital lights. The bandages on his arms are tight and clean now, the oxygen mask replaced by a thin nasal tube. His chest rises and falls, slow and even. Katsuki's been counting every breath. He doesn't even realize he's fallen asleep until something shifts, a faint rustle of sheets. Then a voice. So, correct. Familiar. Kaken. The word cuts through him like a blade. Katsuki's head snaps up so fast his neck pops. His eyes go wide, the kind of wide he'd kill anyone else for seeing. Deku. Izuku blinks slowly, his voice weak and rough. Hey, You look like crap. Katsuki stares for a second then laughs. Just once. A short, broken sound that's half relief, half disbelief. He drags a hand down his face, covering his mouth. Yeah, well, he mutters, voice shaking, you almost died, dumbass. Izuku's smile wobbles. Didn't plan on it. Could have fooled me. For a moment, they just look at each other. There's no noise from the hallway, no machines beeping too fast, just that tiny space between them, heavy with everything they haven't said. Katsuki finally leans back, his hand raking through his hair. You scared the hell out of me, Deku. Izuku blinks, confused. You were scared. Katsuki glares, but it's weak, his voice trembling at the edges. Of course I was scared, idiot. You were bleeding all over me and you stopped moving. What the hell was I supposed to do? The outburst echoes, sharp, but it breaks halfway through like it runs out of anger before it reaches the end. Izuku's throat tightens. Kaken. Katsuki looks away, jaw tense. You can't keep doing that. Running in like you don't care what happens to you. I had to, Izuku says quietly. All Might needed help. You always have to, Katsuki snaps back. Then, softer almost to himself, you don't get it. I can't. He stops, the words choking in his throat. Izuku tilts his head weakly. Can't what? Katsuki looks at him then. Really looks, eyes glassy, shoulders shaking just enough that he hopes Izuku's too tired to notice. Can't lose you. The words hang there raw, naked, unguarded. Katsuki clenches his fists to hide the tremor, his voice barely a whisper now. You hear me? You don't get to just fall apart like that and expect me to keep standing. Izuku's heart stutters. Kaken. Shut up, Katsuki mutters, wiping his face with the heel of his hand. You talk too much. But he doesn't move away when Izuku shifts his hand toward him, trembling, slow. Their fingers brush, barely touching. Katsuki grips it like it's the only thing keeping him grounded. Silence stretches between them, but it's not empty. It's full. Alive. Izuku smiles weakly. You stayed the whole time? Katsuki scoffs. Like hell I was gonna leave you alone. You'd probably try to save the nurses from their own job or something. Izuku laughs, a quiet, breathy sound that makes Katsuki's chest loosen for the first time in days. Thank you, Izuku says. Katsuki doesn't answer right away. He just leans forward, resting his forehead gently against the back of Izuku's hand. His voice comes out small. Just, don't scare me like that again, okay? Izuku nods, his voice faint but sure. I'll try. Katsuki huffs a quiet laugh. You better. The monitor keeps its steady rhythm, soft and even. And for the first time since the USJ, Katsuki Bakugo finally lets himself breathe. The rhythmic beep, beep, beep of the heart monitor had almost become background noise. It had been 2 days since the USJ incident. The smell of antiseptic hung in the air, the kind of sterile quiet that made every movement sound too loud. Izuku sat propped up in bed, sunlight cutting soft gold through the blinds. His arm was wrapped in clean bandages, his freckles faded under the pale light, but there was color returning to his face. Next to him, Katsuki Bakugo was slouched in the visitor's chair, feet on the bed frame, one hand clutching his phone, the other holding Izuku's hand, making sure his pulse didn't slow. He wasn't asleep. Just sitting there. Watching. Izuku turned his head slightly. You've been doing that for hours, he murmured. Katsuki didn't look up. Doing what? Pretending you're not checking my pulse every 10 minutes. There was a beat of silence. Then, quietly, shut up. Izuku smiled faintly, his voice still rough. I mean it though, thank you, Kaken. Bakugo scowled, eyes flicking up. You don't thank people for basic decency, nerd. You almost got yourself killed. Somebody had to make sure you didn't flatline before the pros cleared you. Izuku opened his mouth to say something back, but the door burst open with a bang. DKU. Uraraka's voice filled the room before she even appeared. Behind her, a storm of voices rose: Mina, Ida, Kaminari, Jiu, Siro, Kirishima, Momo, Thu, Todoroki, Shoji, Tokoyami, Aoyama, Sato, Koda, even Shinso lingering awkwardly near the back. In the doorway stood the entire class 1A, all 20 of them. The nurses were definitely going to yell at them later. Izuku blinked, startled. "Wait, you're all here to see your pretty face." Mina interrupted, rushing over to hug him gently. "We brought snacks. And cards. And Jaira made a playlist for your recovery." "I didn't make it," Jaira muttered. "I just refused to let Kaminari put heavy metal and anime openings back to back again." "Bro, those slap." Kaminari protested. Ida stepped forward, chopping the air with both hands. "Everyone, indoor voices. This is a hospital, not a festival." Zero leaned against the doorframe, grinning. "I don't know, man, feels like a festival for Miracle Greenie over here." Katsuki groaned, dragging a hand down his face. "You people are so DMN loud." "Hey, Kogu," Kirishima said, grinning. "You've been camping out here this whole time, huh? That's pretty manly of you." "Shut it, hair for brains," Katsuki snapped, though his face turned a faint shade of red. "I was just making sure he didn't do anything stupid like I didn't bleed out in his sleep." "Ah, you care." Ashido teased. "Say that again and I'll blow up your stupid pen collection, Pinky." Laughter filled the room. Even Todoroki cracked a small, almost invisible smile. Meanwhile, Tsuyu placed a small frog plushie on Izuku's bedside table. "Karo, I thought this might make you smile." Izuku's eyes softened. "Thank you, Tsu." Momo approached next, holding a small notebook. "We also started taking notes on what we learned from the USJ attack. When you're feeling better, we can all review them together." Everyone wanted to contribute. He looked around at all of them. His classmates. His friends. Even Shinso, standing off to the side, met his gaze and offered a small nod. "You did good, Midoriya. You scared the hell out of everyone, but you did good." Izuku's throat tightened. "Thank you, all of you." "Really?" The room went quiet for a moment, the kind of silence that was full, not empty. Katsuki leaned against the wall now, arms crossed, pretending to be annoyed but clearly listening to every word. Uraraka suddenly clapped her hands. "Okay, serious talk over. Who's up for snacks?" Kaminari stole pudding cups from the cafeteria. "They weren't stolen," Kaminari insisted, pulling out a bag. "They were reallocated." Aoyama gasped dramatically. "How daring!" Within seconds, the room was chaos again, laughter, playful arguments, Kirishima and Kaminari trying to arm wrestle on the floor, Ida desperately trying to restore order. Even Todoroki quietly handed Izuku an unopened water bottle, muttering, "You forgot to hydrate again." Izuku's chest ached from smiling so much. Through it all, Katsuki never really left his spot by the wall. He just watched, arms folded, eyes soft when no one was looking. Eventually, when the noise calmed and a nurse poked in to scold them, everyone began to leave one by one, promising to visit again the next day. Shinso was the last to linger, tossing Katsuki a look. "You staying again?" Katsuki grunted. "Yeah. Figures." Shinso smirked faintly. "Don't forget to sleep, guard dog." When the door finally closed, the room fell quiet again. Izuku leaned back against the pillows, breathing slow. "You didn't have to stay, Kaken." Katsuki shoved his hands in his pockets. "Didn't say I had to. Just didn't want to leave." Izuku smiled, soft and tired. "You're really bad at lying." "Yeah, well," Katsuki muttered, pulling the chair closer again. "You're really bad at staying alive, so I guess we're even." Izuku chuckled weakly, eyes fluttering shut. "Guess so." Katsuki sat back, watching as his breathing evened out, the steady rhythm of the monitor filling the quiet once more. Under his breath, almost too soft to hear, he whispered, "Just rest, DMN nerd. I've got you." The only sound is the faint hum of the machines beside Izuku's bed and the occasional shuffle of Katsuki's clothes. When the door opens, both boys look up. "All Might," Izuku breathes. The symbol of peace enters with his usual smile, but this time it doesn't reach his eyes. He looks tired. Not just from battle but from years of carrying something too heavy for anyone else to see. He shuts the door behind him quietly. The air feels heavier somehow. Katsuki frowns. "You look worse than usual, old man." All Might chuckles softly. I suppose I do. He turns to Izuku, then to Katsuki. You both did more than any teacher could have asked. And you both almost paid dearly for it. Izuku looks down. I couldn't just stand there, All Might. You were. I know, young Midoriya. His voice gentles. I know. A beat passes. Then All Might's form flickers, his tall, golden-haired frame suddenly collapsing into the thin, frail man beneath it. Both boys freeze. Izuku's breath catches. All Might? Katsuki flinches back, eyes wide. What the hell? The skeletal figure before them gives a tired smile. This is my true form. The silence that follows feels endless. Even the machines seem to quiet. All Might, Izuku whispers, trembling. You're hurt. All Might nods once, slowly. A battle years ago left me gravely wounded. The power you see, it doesn't last forever. I can only maintain it for a few hours each day. Katsuki's throat tightens. He grips the end of Izuku's bed, trying to process it. So all that at USJ you were. Running out of time, All Might finishes quietly. Yes. Izuku's eyes sting. But you still fought. You still saved us. All Might chuckles, though his voice breaks. I am a hero. That's what we do. Then his gaze softens, heavy with something like pride and grief tangled together. Well, All Might continues, that power you saw, one for all, it can be passed from one person to another. I passed it on to one of the students at UA, and right now I cannot say anything. All Might put a finger to his lips. But I am slowly fading. He swallows hard. So that's it, huh? You're fading. All Might smiles, small and tired. Heroes don't fade, young Bakugo. They live on in those who believe in them. The words linger in the air like light through storm clouds. Izuku's hands shake as he reaches forward weakly, but with purpose. Well, carry it. We don't have your quirk, but we'll carry it. Katsuki smirks. Hell ya, nerd. All Might chuckles, the warmth in his laugh returning at last. The bar is quiet. Too quiet. Shigaraki Tamura sits hunched over the counter, the television in the corner still looping grainy footage of the aftermath at USJ heroes escorting injured students, police crawling over the rubble. Every now and then, the screen flickers with the faintest glimpse of green hair. That's when his hand twitches. Thrift. His fingers drag against his neck, slow, rhythmic, like an itch that won't stop burning. Kurogiri stands behind him, silent, polishing a glass that doesn't need cleaning. Another failure, Shigaraki mutters, voice thin with irritation. Nomu was supposed to crush him. Crush All Might. He slams his hand down on the counter, the wood splintering under his palm. But that brat. He stops himself, lips curling into something between a grin and a snarl. That kid, his voice drops to a whisper, half laugh, half growl. He moved. Kurogiri's calm voice cuts through the still air. You mean the student who tried to fight the Nomu? Shigaraki turns his head slightly. His red-rimmed eyes gleam under the dim light. He didn't just try. He heard it. That wasn't luck. That wasn't a quirkless weakling throwing himself into danger. He leans back, smirking, nails dragging lightly over the edge of his mask. He saw All Might trapped. And he ran in without thinking. Just like him. Kurogiri tilts his head. You sound intrigued. Curious, Shigaraki corrects. His voice is cold now, measured. He looked terrified but still moved. He wasn't supposed to be anything. Just another kid. But that look. He pauses, remembering the flash of green eyes, wild and desperate. That look in his face. Like he'd break himself just to save someone else. He laughs quietly, a broken, dry sound. Disgusting. Pathetic. Perfect. Kurogiri places the glass down gently. You believe he's special? I think. Shigaraki's fingers hover just above his neck, trembling slightly. I think I want to know why. He stands, pacing slowly. The sound of his boots against the floor echoes through the empty room. If All Might's the symbol of peace, he says, tone sharp with venom, then that boy, what's his name again? Midoriya Izuku. Kurogyri answers without hesitation. Right. Shigaraki's grin widens beneath his hand. Midoriya is Zuko, the one who moved when everyone else froze. He stops, head tilting. Let's watch him. Let's see how far he's willing to break himself. And when he does, his voice drops to a low hiss. I'll be there to pick up the pieces. He sits back down, calm again, but his hand never stops scratching. Kurogyri sighs quietly. So the boy has your attention. Shigaraki's eyes flick toward the TV one last time to a frame frozen on Izuku's unconscious face as paramedics rush him away. Oh, he has more than that, Shigaraki murmurs, voice soft and unsettling. He has my interest.